Hello, this is Editor Swapno with some quick disclaimers before the start of the video. Since recording this, we have heard from Chris Richards, center back on the US men's national team, that he will be fit to start in the match against Paraguay. That's great for them. And as for Paraguay, we've also learned that Julio Enciso has been injured in their most recent friendly versus Nicaragua. They might not score any goals this World Cup. But with that said, let's get on to the video.
Welcome back to the CoDaKrew podcast. Today we are doing our long-promised World Cup power ranking, where we rank every country at this year's World Cup from 1st to 48th based on skill level. We don't know how long this video is going to be, so buckle up, play this in the background, do what you gotta do, play this while you're making dinner. Just be prepared for what this video is about to be. Also, another disclaimer, there are friendlies literally every day. We were recording this on the 5th, which means that there might be information when you're seeing this that we do not have yet, because that is how time works. Finally, I want to make the disclaimer that just because one team is ranked above another does not mean that the higher ranked team will win, because tactics, first off, are a huge factor in football, and also the World Cup is full of upsets. So yeah. I think that's enough. Let's just get right into it. Swapnil, who is placed 48th on your power ranking?
It's probably the same team you have. It's Curacao. Respect for getting this far, but you're debutants, so I can't work off any previous performances at a tournament of this level. And you lost to China, who are respectfully not a good team. There's not much else for me to say here. Curacao 48th.
I want to make one shout out to Curacao before we move on. Dick Avocat, their coach, is an absolute baller. He left behind his job in 2005 as the UAE manager to coach South Korea without telling anybody. And he did the same thing in 2010. He left his job at AZ Alkmaar in the Dutch league and just left without telling anybody to manage Russia. So this guy, he's an absolute mad lad. He might be a little bit clinically insane, but he did get an island with a population of less than 200,000 to the World Cup. So, that is pretty impressive. Yeah. But what have these guys even done, right? Like, they've drawn Canada, they've beaten Jamaica. There's not really much to speak of in terms of
right. The team itself started in 2010, so just generally there's not much to go off of here. What can you really say, right?
Yeah. Congrats on making it, though. Hey, look, China didn't make it. I know they beat you, but they didn't make it, so, who really wins, right?
Fair enough. Okay, 47th. This may come as a shock to some people given how early these guys qualified. I have New Zealand. New Zealand, I think, is not good, or at least you can't prove that they're good, because they tore apart all the other OFC teams to qualify, but it's the OFC. To use a term commonly used in US college sports, which is strength of schedule, New Zealand have none of it. Since they qualified, they don't have strength of schedule when they win anyways. Since they qualified, they beat Cote d'Ivoire in the Canadian Shield friendly, fair enough, then lost to Ukraine, Australia twice, I think, Colombia, Ecuador, and Finland. They lost to Finland before getting a big 4-1 win against Chile, who was a man down. They were a man down most of that match. That was, I think, New Zealand's first win ever against a South American team, so that's fair enough. It's just, it was against the guys who were bottom of the CONMEBOL qualifying table. So there's nothing especially impressive here, and they also just lost to Haiti 3 or 4-0. So for me, they've not proven themselves enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I have them 47th as well. I think there are people that have them higher. I can't really justify that. Big up Chris Wood, big up Tim Payne, but I'm sorry. If you're getting destroyed 4-0 by Haiti, I don't really see how you can do anything at this World Cup. Honestly, they should just be thankful that they're in a group with Iran and Egypt, because if they were in a more difficult group, they might get a negative 20 goal differential.
Yeah. First team to finish on negative points in the World Cup, bro.
Yeah.
46th. I have Cape Verde. Unfortunately, a lot of tourney debutants or maybe second-time teams are going to be down here. It's just hard to rank a team hardly if they've got limited experience at this level. It's hard to rank them high. That is the case for Cape Verde. There might be people who look at this team's recent matches and say, Cape Verde took Iran and Egypt to pens. How can they be this low? I get that, but I believe those results are very deceptive. Cape Verde had good possession against Iran, never did anything with it the entire match. I admit for some of these teams, I have not watched a lot of, if any, matches. Cape Verde, I watched that one because I was interested to see what they could do, and they did nothing. So the Egypt game was a lot of the same, just like no threat shown at all. Besides that, they have scored consistently against teams that are not in the World Cup. So I can't really use those games as basis either, I think. So yeah, Cape Verde is also going to be down here.
I think that's a little bit disrespectful to Cape Verde. I
Okay.
mean, they've been pretty good at AFCONs recently. You have to give them credit for that. And Egypt and Iran, I mean, okay, I did this shit on them like 2 minutes ago, but they're not terrible. I mean, they're going to be in these rankings. They're not really at the bottom. Well, that's all I'm going to say for now. But the team I do have in 46, though, I think you probably have them around here as well. It's going to be Haiti. Congrats on making it. They made it. They qualified to the World Cup without being able to play in their home country because their home country is currently a war zone. So, again, congratulations. They made it here. But I don't really see Haiti doing anything at this tournament. And not only do they not really have a roster that's good enough for the World Cup, they don't play a system that fits what an underdog would have to play in order to do well in the World Cup. Because they have a very high line. They do have some good offensive options. Wilson Isidore at Sunderland, notable. He's already scored a goal for them, even though he just joined the national team, I think, in March or February of this year. You've also got Duncan in the zone. You've got Perot in the offense. It's not a horrible offense, but it's not World Cup quality either. There's also Bellegarde in the midfield, but as a team, they're not ready.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, I do have Haiti here, 45th, just ahead of Cape Verde, mostly because of form for me. Because again, I think some of those close losses for Cape Verde have been deceptively good. Not bad, but deceptive. Whereas I think Haiti has genuinely looked good in their recent games against worse opposition, but still like a 4-0 against New Zealand, right? You do still have to look at the whole package, though. The Gold Cup campaign was not great. I mean, they had Saudi Arabia in their group, who had like a terrible roster. I remember they brought to that tourney, and I'm pretty sure they still lost to Saudi. The 5-1 beatdown they got from Curacao, who I have below them, right, is no good. So I can't put them much ahead of Curacao. Thus, I have them here. Yeah.
Fair enough. Do you want to take a guess at who my 45th team is?
Cape Verde.
No, I said you were disrespecting them earlier.
Oh, Qatar.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Qatar.
Yeah.
What to say about Qatar? This is very weird because they are back-to-back reigning AFC champions, which to not go into too many specifics, let's just say that second one, 2022, that final against Jordan, they got 3 penalties. And I'm not saying it was rigged, but they got 3 penalties in the final. So, if I speak, I'll be in big trouble. I'll just say, I'm not going to say anything else. Whatever. Yeah, that. Then, in World Cup qualifying, they barely made it through round 3 of AFC qualifying. To be honest, if they did not sack their manager midway through, they might not even have been a top 4 team at all. And then, for whatever miraculous reason, unannounced, the round 4 matches all happened to be in Qatar. Right? Again, I don't want to say anything more than that, but look, this Qatari national team, I don't think they should even be here. Okay, look, Akram Afif, good. Okay, that guy's a baller. Amoaz Ali, big up, respect. But honestly, you could replace the other 9 starters on the Qatari national team with just random guys off the street, and they wouldn't be any worse than they are now.
Yeah. I mean, it is Akram Afif and Almoz Ali who are going to have to carry this squad. Like, they've got to score because the defense is horrible. This team is getting no 0-0 draws, no 1-0 wins. They can't keep a clean sheet for their lives. Except against like Iran on a red card. Then I guess they can do it. Then in like the last 2 years, they've been smashed by the UAE, as well as some of the Stan nations. I think Uzbekistan and one other one in like the last year. They've also been beat by Zimbabwe in friendlies, by Palestine, I think, in the Arab Cup, and drawn to Syria with, again, no clean sheets. I'm sorry. This team is finishing fourth.
They should not be here.
This team is finishing fourth. That's all
absolutely.
I can say.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I said this in our last video, if Qatar do not finish fourth in their group, whoever does, absolute blasphemy, absolute disappointment, sack everybody involved if you finish below Qatar in this World Cup.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was my 44th. Who have you got 44th then?
My 44th national team is going to be Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And I think there will be people who say I put them too low, especially because they do have some World Cup pedigree. I mean, they did beat Argentina last time. But the squad is getting older. Obviously, Aldasari is still there. But the team has, one, it's not looked very cohesive at all recently. Two, very similar to Qatar. They only qualified because round four of AFC, their group, they all have to play in Saudi Arabia. You know, I don't think AFC ever clarified why Saudi Arabia and Qatar got to play round four at home. I don't know if you know anything about that. I again, I'm not gonna say anything beyond what I have already, but this side, I don't think there is much positive I can say. They had Hervé Renard during the 2022 World Cup, and this squad has gone to so much shit that he left, they re-signed him, and then they just sacked him again. So now they've got this new guy. I know, admittedly, completely nothing about them. Their defense, outside of Hassan Al-Tambakti, is really bad. They have, I mean, they have a few decent players, but there's not really a lot positive I can say about this national team.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Georgios Donis is their manager now, I think. He's been there like 2 months, right? I don't know what you can say about him. But this team is just moving in all the wrong directions. Like, we were covering the Gold Cup, and we thought that these guys were respectable. For how many injury issues they had, they were respectable. They got out of the group stage, right? Where is that grit now? I swear, in a year, it's just disappeared. They just lost 4-0 to Egypt, who after they came out of the AFCON. And you know what happened to Egypt in the AFCON? They beat Zimbabwe 2-1. I think Drew Angola beat Benin. Or so sorry, no, it was like a 2-0 against Angola. Beat Benin 3-1. Those were all better opponents than Saudi Arabia was. They lost the third place match to the Super Eagles, Nigeria. Better opponent than Saudi Arabia was. You know what Zimbabwe, Angola, Benin, and Nigeria also have in common? They're not at the World Cup, man. I think that's enough said, no?
Yeah, that might be an upset. Wait, so are they also your 44th place team?
That's my 43rd Saudi
That's your
Arabia.
40. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see where this is going. Okay. Okay. My 43rd place team. Again, some feathers will be ruffled with this one. I'm gonna put Ghana here. Okay, listen. Before any Ghanaians who happen to be here, if there are any, before they dislike the video and write a hate comment, let me just explain. I understand that this team has a lot of quality on paper. Okay, listen, I'm a Leicester fan. Okay, I have a lot of respect for Jordan Ayew. He's a great guy, right? But you guys play on the counter, and you don't have a good defense, so that's already a big problem. Semenyo, as well as Jordan Ayew, have never really played at their level for the Ghanaian national team. The only offensive player who has been good for them is Mohamed Kudus, and he's injured. He's not going to be at this World Cup. So maybe you guys can pull something together in your group, but again, I don't really see it. I don't see it at all. Have seen certain people put Ghana within like the top 30, and I will say, first off, I'm going to just shout out The Athletic real quick. They are the inspiration for why we're doing this video.
It's
They
terrible.
put Ghana in 26. Okay, for some context, right? Ghana didn't qualify for the AFCON. 24 African teams qualify for the AFCON. They couldn't be top 24 in Africa. And you want to tell me they're almost top 24 in the world? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Not Saudi Arabia. Qatar, at maximum, I can maybe say they're top 40. They're not top 30. And they're going to struggle. Not only do they have a pretty difficult group, I don't see any real upside with this national team whatsoever.
It's funny because our lists are actually just like one apart right now because of Cape Verde. I have gone to 42nd.
Right.
And yeah, I know they had the 2-1 loss to Germany, which might make putting them as low as we have seem unreasonable. It should have been a bigger loss, a much bigger loss if you watch that game. Maybe closer to the 5-1 against Austria. And like New Zealand, there's a concern for me that like outside of these losses, they haven't had a great strength of schedule with teams outside of CAF. It's just been World Cup and AFCON qualifiers against lower ranked African teams and a friendly versus a better African team in Nigeria, which they lost. Player-wise as well, some of my ranking might be down to them calling up Thomas Partey. I'm really hoping their campaign goes to shit. But they also,
Fuck that
like you
guy, yeah.
said, they don't have Kudus, right? A key creative, an escape valve under pressure. Not having him is going to make it a lot harder on transition for them to get into good attacks. They do have Semenyo, but you can't put everything on his shoulders, I think. The team around him is just not good enough. So,
And also,
47.
he's not been good for the national team. I'm sorry.
That's true.
Like, this
That's
guy has done nothing for
yeah.
Ghana.
Your
All right,
42nd?
my 42nd, yeah, this is where Cape Verde is going to be. Maybe, on second thought, maybe I have placed them a little bit too high. It might be because I just really like the way this national team plays. A lot of these teams at the bottom, they're just going to park the bus and try to counter, right? Not Cape Verde. They're actually going to play in possession. They have decent wingers. I mean, obviously, I would say Ryan Mendes, probably the face of the national team, but Willie Samito, pretty solid as well. If they do want to play a more conservative style of football, Logan Costa, very solid center back. I would say their back line is also not terrible. The one real disadvantage, as you pointed out earlier, is they've obviously never been in a World Cup before. So, of course, it's one thing to do well at the AFCON, it's another to do well at a World Cup. So I can understand that argument. But I do think they're pretty well positioned. They have Saudi Arabia in their group, and I have Saudi Arabia below them. So that's winnable. I'm not saying they're going to win, but that is winnable. I think they could make history here. I really do. And yes, not having experience can be a disadvantage. But also, when no one's ever heard of you, and there are no expectations attached to your national team whatsoever, that can also be liberating in a way. So I'm not even so sure that's going to be necessarily a disadvantage for this national team.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at this based on we're trying to be objective with our rankings here. We're not really using the World Cup groups. But yeah, it's like you said, even though I have them behind Saudi Arabia, it's only by 2 or 3 places. So there is an opportunity there. If one of those teams is really bad, for the other two do well enough that they can get out of the group stage in the third place, right? With that said, though, the last or not well, not the last team before we get out of the 40s, but okay, this is going to be, I think, one of the more out there placements of mine thus far. South Africa in 41. There will be people who will not be happy with that at all. But
that's a little bit low, but I'm not going to hate it.
I do think the teams down here are very close together. This isn't meant to rag on South Africa. With that said, though, I just don't like the results for this team. It's a fun attacking side, but it just doesn't score as much. They don't score as much as they should. If you look at the doubleheader they had against Panama, dominant in the first half of the first game, but they were so unclinical. They had good XG, which went into not just a bunch of okay chances, but a few very good ones, and they just weren't taken well. And then they lost that second match as well, 2-1, and it was pretty similar. This is a trend for South Africa's games. It's not a one-off that their offense is just, it doesn't click, basically. And the defense isn't reliable, so they practically have to score 2 goals a game, assuming their opponents can find or are gifted at least one. But again, if the scoring's not consistent enough, they just draw or lose all their matches. I'm not sure it can be fixed for them, unfortunately, going into the World Cup. I think it'll be a problem for them.
I mean, I fully agree that the finishing is a huge issue for South Africa. They really can't score within the opposition box. They only score long shots, which, I mean, look, it is the World Cup. Crazy shit does happen sometimes. They might find themselves getting results just off the long shots. So it's not an impossibility. I can understand your placement. I think part of it, though, is we have seen how good they can be, right? There was one point, I think last year, they were at 27 or 25 games undefeated. They were on red hot form at one point. And obviously it's died down a little bit, and that could be a problem coming into the actual tournament. But South Africa, playing at their best, they are actually a pretty solid national team. And I think there are some other countries that I'm going to have to place below them. And my 41st team is going to be Iraq. You're cool with that? Okay, I thought you would put them higher.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Look, here's the issue, right? Very similar to South Africa, they don't really have very reliable offense just in general. Obviously, Ivan Hussein, very solid, but he does rely quite a bit on physicality. And there's a difference between being physical enough for the AFC and being physical enough for the actual World Cup, right? And other than that, I mean, Ali Jassim, I think he's pretty solid, but the other wingers are not very good. And they also have a relatively okay midfield. They have Zidane Iqbal, they have Amir Al-Amari, but if we are going to count the fact that both of the offenses are not very solid, South Africa and Iraq, I do think that the rest of the squad, South Africa is still better. So South Africa is going to be a few places higher for me. I'm going to put Iraq at 41st.
Okay, well, I have Iraq in 40th. And again, for me,
Okay.
there's some issues with strength of schedule and who Iraq has and hasn't played. First off, I think they very much deserve to host the fourth round of AFC qualifiers based on their previous performances, as opposed to Saudi Arabia, who ended up getting all the games in Group B for the fourth round, which I take serious issue with. But that's part of why I have Iraq ahead of Saudi here, though the Saudis did qualify earlier. However, because Iraq had to keep playing through the qualifiers, they missed a chance in November to schedule some friendlies against teams outside the AFC, like maybe Argentina, who probably would have taken Iraq over Angola as a practice friendly, right? And while they did just draw Spain, I think it's worth noting, one, Spain had lots of key players not on the pitch. And two, Iraq's equalizing goal was a screamer from Doski. It wasn't anything that you can really emulate or expect to
They do
emulate in
score
a game.
streamers. I'm not
They
expecting to
do, they
emulate it,
do.
but it's not.
But I just don't think you can assume that that's going to keep happening for them. Certainly not
Fair.
in the tournament. So they will stay in this area of the rankings for me. Could be a bit higher, but this is around where I would put them.
I get the feeling we're going to keep repeating from here on out for the next
Until you name
few
South
placements.
Africa. Yeah.
This could very much happen. My 40th place team is Jordan. Is that your 39th?
It is actually not.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, honestly, for me, Jordan and Iraq are completely equal. It's just that, obviously, when you look at their history, Jordan does tend to do better. There was the AFC Asian Cup. Obviously, I believe they were in the same group in World Cup qualifying, and then Jordan took Iraq's spot, right? So, honestly, that was the only separator for me. These two teams were completely interchangeable. I'm only putting Jordan because they're actually better at playing Iraq. So, whatever. They're, again, pretty interchangeable. The one thing about Jordan that I do like is, okay, I'm gonna make a comparison, and just bear with me here. Brentford. Alright? Counter-attacking, playing all through long balls, and you just use really pacey wingers, and you try to abuse the opponent backline. You just play that way, right? Ali Owan, and Musa Altamari, essentially equivalent to, Igor Thiago and Dango Uatura. I mean, you hear what I'm saying, Kevin Shadi. That's sort of the profile of player. And then their key midfielder, in my opinion, it's going to be Mahmoud Al-Rashdan. And that guy, he's essentially, I'm going to argue, the Mikkel Damsgaard of this national team, where his main job is to sling in the long balls and allow the wingers to go in behind and just cook against the opposition backline. So that's the positive. The negative is defensively, this team is not good. They're really bad conceding set pieces. They do concede a lot of goals against good teams in general. But what that does mean is that every Jordan match is going to have a lot of goals. The issue is, not all of those goals will necessarily be scored by Jordan. But for neutrals, it will be very entertaining. So I am looking forward to seeing them in their... Especially given, the other teams in their group are also quite offensive. So that's going to be quite interesting. But yeah, for me, I'm going to put them 40th.
Yeah, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, Jordan is a pretty interesting group.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have Jordan 39th. I actually have Panama. I like Panama. I like their manager, Christensen. I mean, of course, we've covered Panama a couple times before with random CONCACAF tourneys, right? And I'd like for them to do well, but I have quite a few problems with the team. They can't finish for their lives. I know they beat the Dominican Republic 4-2 earlier, but this was still a problem. The Dominican defense and keeper were no good this game. Actually, the second goal was handed by the keeper to Panama on a silver platter with like a bad pass. This game could have just been 3-2 if not for that. And not that it should have been. There were other easy opportunities for Panama that they just did not take. And I don't know if you've seen the clips from their open practice session before they played this game, because those got out. These guys were struggling in practice to score goals, bro. It was a bad fucking watch. And I don't know. They're another team as well, where I'm concerned they don't have enough games against teams outside their confed. I think this is, for certain confederations, this can be a problem. I think like CAF, a lot of teams do not get good scheduling. And for teams outside like Mexico, the US, and Canada in CONCACAF, this can be an issue. For Panama, I think it is. Lastly, no depth on this damn team. A good starting lineup, but no depth. Carrasquilla, maybe the most important guy on this lineup, had an injury a week ago. He has still been named to the roster. If he turns out to be unfit, they will get absolutely bullied in midfield. It is a shame. Even with him playing at his best, I could see Panama getting 0 points again, just like four years ago. If he isn't playing at his best, I think that is what is going to happen.
4 years ago? You mean 8 years ago?
Eight. You're right. Yeah.
I do also have them 39th. And I agree with basically everything you've just said. Cecilio Waterman is their striker. He is really bad at finishing. The entire squad is really bad at finishing. We both like Panama, and we both have glazed Thomas Christensen in general. I would argue he's the best manager in North America. But that not being able to finish is just such a big problem for this Panamanian side. And if you don't have a goal scorer on your roster, you're very limited in what you can do. CoDaKrew, I'm assuming he will be playing all 3 matches. If he's not, then okay, Panama might be completely finished. But I do think the fact that they have a relatively decent midfield, a relatively decent defense as well, obviously Jose Cordova, Amir Murillo, it's not a terrible side. I think what they're going to be hoping to do is they're going to hope to try to beat Ghana and then keep the goal differential relatively okay against Croatia and England. So they might just have to go with the park the bus strategy, and I think it could work. I actually don't think that this side is not cooked, I would say. Like, I do expect them to put up a decent fight in the group stages, but yeah, I mean, this team is just really limited. There's not much you can do. Like, Thomas Christensen, you can't really coach finishing onto your players. The tactics are perfect. I really have no criticisms of the way they play, or like even really the player pool. Like they've utilized their player pool perfectly, but I think they're hard capped.
Yeah, fair enough. 38th place, I have Jordan here, who have beat Iraq quite recently at the Arab Cup, qualified for the World Cup 2 rounds ahead of them. Personally, I think Iraq should have gotten the home game in the 4th round, and maybe they'd get by, but still, Jordan would have gone through ahead. And they have a wider variety of games against non-Asian opponents. This is what also puts them, for me, ahead of Panama. Not all good ones, to be clear. I mean, they just lost 4-1 to Switzerland, but they did look pretty good in the Arab Cup against Morocco. Kept it close in the final, and pretty good gritty showings against Costa Rica and Nigeria. I think it was 2 draws there. I want to say it was 2-2 on both of them. So that puts them a bit ahead for me. However, these guys like South Africa cannot keep a clean sheet for their lives. So they're going to have to score consistently. And though they do have a key attacker back from injury in Ali Olwan, I think their 2nd or 3rd highest goal scorer in qualifying, I'd have doubts about Jordan scoring more than a goal, if any, against a lot of teams in this tournament. So I can't put them too high. They go just above Panama for me.
My 30th team, I think it might be another surprise here. I'm actually going to go with Bosnia. Because
interesting.
Okay, I know you're gonna put them. You definitely put them a lot higher than me, and that's okay. But here's the thing, right? Yes, they beat Wales and Italy. They were both on penalty shootouts. One, Italy got a red card, and I'm just looking at this Bosnian side, and I really don't see a lot of game-changing quality here. Their best player is a 40-year-old, Edin Dzeko, and he's great, but I don't know how much you can still rely on him. I don't know how much left he's got in the tank. They've got Tabakovic, who was going to be their other striker, but he's now injured for at least the opening match against Canada. He might come back later, but that is a big loss because if you're Bosnia and you're trying to make sure you qualify, Canada is the one game that you really need to win. There are still some other wingers that are quite solid. Karim Ayabegovic. There's the Esmer guy whose last name I'm not going to try to pronounce, but I don't think there is too much quality-wise on this Bosnian side. Offensively, they can be quite solid. Wingers, they're good crossers and all that, but they don't really have, they don't really have a great defense. They don't really have a great midfield on the ball. They're good in transition, but not really in possession. And so, I don't know that that's going to be enough to play well at a World Cup, especially against especially against the teams they're playing against, like Switzerland and Canada. You're gonna try to have, like Canada in particular, they'll be happy to let you get the ball. They're gonna just try to press you. And I think Bosnia are not a very pressure-resistant midfield whatsoever. So again, I know I'm factoring in their opponents here. I'm not supposed to do that, but I don't really see this. Like, they could definitely make the knockouts, especially because Qatar's in their group, but I don't really see them getting any further than that.
Okay, fair enough. 37th, I have got Tunisia, who were very good in World Cup qualifying. They didn't give up a single goal. Even if the teams they went up against were weak, I have to give them credit for that, right? However, that is not translated really against better teams. A 1-0 loss and a 3-0 loss against Egypt. 1-1 draw to Brazil. I mean, that's hardly bad, to be honest. But I mean, they're not getting clean sheets here. They also lost to Syria and drew to Palestine, which ultimately put them out of the Arab Cup. They lost on pens in the AFCON against a Mali side that was a man down for half the game. And I want to say it was like a 1-1 draw, so I'm not sure even that was a clean sheet. And then they've had some okay friendlies lately, including a 1-0 loss to Austria, who were also a man down for half of that game. These aren't great showings. Certainly not the games against like other World Cup qualified teams. They do have, as we record this, another friendly tomorrow against Belgium. So it would be interesting to see how they fare in that match. But for now, I don't rate them too highly. So 37.
I mean, they did draw against us, which is worth something.
Fair, fair.
Or maybe not. Obviously, we're not an elite national team, but whatever. I do have them pretty close to you, but this is where I place in my South Africa at 37th. Again, like, I mean, I sort of alluded to this when you said that, when you talked about them, but while they are not in the best form right now, at their best, like, I have seen how good they can be. They have a clear system. Obviously, they did make the World Cup in 2010 because they're hosting it, but now they, like, very deservingly so. They have the merit to qualify here. And again, like you said, the finishing is not great. Obviously, Lau Foster, Owen Apollos, when they're playing well, South Africa can certainly get results. But the question is that is a big if. They did have a home match against Nicaragua. That ended 0-0. They had 86% possession against Nicaragua and they couldn't score. So yes, this South African side is pretty down bad right now. I will admit that, but I don't know. I think that they're a pretty tough team to like break down. They have a relatively decent defense. Ronald Williams is a very solid goalkeeper. I think he's a very underrated goalkeeper. They have the 20-year-old, I think, Mambukazi. Is that right? In the backside, he's pretty solid. So I don't think that this South African side can roll over. I don't think they can be broken down as easily as some of these other teams that are sort of down around this placement on the list. So, I mean, given their group, I think they're in a pretty even group as well. So if they just get some draws, then they could end up making it to the knockouts. Then from there, you never know what's going to happen. So I don't think that. I think they are definitely top 40. I think you put them a little bit low, but 37th. That's where That's where I have them.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they have South Korea and Czechia who could scrap against each other, and if so, maybe South Africa sneaks out with something. Speaking of which, I actually have Czechia next in 36th. This was quite the toss-up for me between them and the next team in my list, but I'll have them here. They've won 2 penalty shootouts in a row against pretty good opposition in Ireland and Denmark, and being good in shootouts, that could very much be a useful thing in the World Cup knockouts, which from their group they do have a good shot of getting into. They also, in the qualifiers, lost to the Faroe Islands and got smashed 5-1 by Croatia. So I have my concerns. We've talked about Czechia before in our last video when we were talking about like how they might face us in the round of 32. It's a nice, strong, physical team that I think could cause Canada a lot of issues if we play them. But it's not an elite roster, nor are the players really outperforming their expectations. So for me, they just barely escape the bottom quarter of teams.
I hear it. I have them higher, but honestly, the teams around this, like in the 30s, the mid to high 30s, it's very difficult for me. So I think that's fine. That's fine. My team in 36 is your team in 37. It is Tunisia. Again, you're basically stealing all my lines here. Have they did switch managers relatively recently, and they are not as haram as they were before, which is partially why they are conceding more goals. But I think you could very well argue that they don't really have the offense to compensate for playing a less defensive style of football. They have Hannibal Mejbri, he's a good playmaker, but are you really going to rely on him alone to fare in the World Cup? That's a pretty, questionable proposition in my opinion. So, yeah, I think 36, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, fair enough. Then for 35th, I have a team that you listed earlier. It is Bosnia, who did beat Italy not long ago, who for all the smack they get, Italy are a decent team. And while Italy did get a red card just before the half, Bosnia, I think, were the better team before that happened as well. In the opening minutes, for sure, they looked poised to get a fast goal. And then they eventually conceded the first goal instead through a terrible pass by their goalkeepers. So pros and cons, right? But I think it was a decent showing. As was the Wales game, where they showed some great mentality, equalizing late on, and then winning on pens for, like Czechia, 2 penalty shootout wins in a row. So that's also good. Again, though, I have to go back to strength of schedule because those guys are good. Wales, Italy, they are good teams, but ultimately they're not World Cup teams. Since the start of 2025, the only fellow
I would say
World
they're
Cup
both
squad,
World Cup quality, though, right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But the only fellow World Cup squad Bosnia has played is Austria, who they lost to at home. Then I think drew against away. Before that, in the Nations League, you do have to go back quite a while to get to more teams of that quality. 5-2 loss to the Netherlands and
But okay,
seven.
but also, I feel like I'm defending Bosnia, even though I put them lower than you did. But they have gone a lot better in the past year. Like I don't think going back to matches from like over a year ago, I'm not really counting that at all in my assessment of this team. Especially because a lot of the players are so young as well. Like, at least the standouts. So
I mean, I would say a 7-0 loss to Germany within the last 2 years is still a little question to have on your record. But
I understand that, but
yeah,
I get
I
it. I
guess
get it.
ultimately I do still have them higher than you though. So yeah, I just don't think they get too far. Yeah, our group is they'll probably get points off Qatar, but will they be third place, good enough of a third place team to get through? I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. And do they beat us? Honestly, I don't think so.
If
No.
it's with Tabakovic out, I don't really see it, to be honest. Hopefully, I'm not eating crow after they beat us like 3-0 on the first match, and then they have to do a reaction video where I talk shit about our entire national team and say that Jesse Marsh should be sacked. But hopefully, that's not going to happen. My 35th place team, though, I feel like I glaze these guys quite a bit. But I think for a World Cup, you need to have a particular profile, a particular tactical identity, and this team is sort of voidless. I have Uzbekistan in 35th. They have solid players. Kusanov, obviously, at Man City, they're second best or best center back, depending on how you want to define it. Shomurodov, quite a solid striker. Fezalayev on the wing. Shukalov in the midfield, but there's not really much of a tackle identity here. What's like their strength? Just being physical? I don't really see. I don't really see like if they go up against a good team that have a strength. I don't know how they're going to cope with that, and I also don't know how they're going to cope with teams that just have pacey, fast winners, which they don't really have good fullbacks. I mean, they made Liam Miller look good, bro. When you make Liam Miller look good, you're cooked. You're finished. So Uzbekistan, like they're the kind of roster that I would say for like Asian Cups, they're very well versed to play in those. But World Cups are different. World Cups, you need a game changing player, and they just don't.
I guess vaguely their identity is like a low block and just being defensively disciplined. But again, this is something that a lot of teams can choose to do this. It's not anything.
I mean, there are just a lot of teams that do that, but better.
Yeah,
Like I'll just say this: they have DR Congo. You just described DR Congo, so we can basically call them a worse version of DR Congo, who's in their group. So that's not a good sign.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe a level a bit above that is Ecuador. But no,
I would say more than a bit, but
well, a bit above DR Congo. Actually,
I would still say more than a bit
I
above
would.
DR Congo.
Well, you'll see where I have Ecuador and where I have DR Congo.
Okay, this is gonna be interesting. But look,
Uzbekistan is going to be
if you're playing
lower.
As a worse version, if you're playing as a worse version of a worse version of a worse version of Ecuador in a World Cup, that's not a good strategy. And obviously, there's nothing they can do about it. But
yeah, I mean,
they're not really well suited for this.
I'm not gonna say much on them, but I have Uzbekistan here in 34th. I think they have a decent resume. I mean, they went to the quarterfinals of the Asian Cup, went down on pens to Qatar, who always win or do well in at least the Asian Cup, so that's not unreasonable. Handily beat
I will
Qatar.
say there was some. I will also say there was some dodgy refereeing in favor of Qatar, in my opinion, at least in that quarterfinal.
Yeah.
So one could argue they should have won the Asian Cup because they didn't lose on penalties to the
eventual champion.
winners.
Yeah,
right.
They beat Qatar like comfortably. I think it was a 3-0 in World Cup qualifiers. Drew Iran twice, home and away. That was pretty nice. But I don't know. There's a slim chance that these guys don't lose games really too often. They draw a lot. And there's a slim chance that they can slip through to the knockout with draws against.
But they would have to basically draw against Portugal and Colombia.
Exactly.
Which it's not impossible, but that's very difficult to do.
Right. So I don't really see it, unfortunately. They'd still need a somewhat weaker group, and I don't see it happening with the people they do have to play against.
Yeah. So then my 34th place team is the team that they drew against both times in World Cup qualifying. I think makes sense to put them right next to each other. It's going to be Iran. Iran, honestly, they're much more well suited for the World Cup than Uzbekistan are on paper. But one, Sardar Azmoun, who is arguably their best offensive player, is going to be missing. And two, sorry to get political real quick, but this is actually a very important factor. The United States government is not letting them train or live in the U.S. during this World Cup, which means they're going to have to train in Mexico, and they're going to have to fly to every game the day of. And when you have to go on a flight, in the group stage, it's not very long of a flight, thankfully. So when you have to go on a flight, though, the day of a match, that is a huge disadvantage. And if they make the knockouts, they're going to have to fly even further. If you're taking like a 6 or 8 hour flight, for example, to, I believe it would be Dallas if they finish second, the day of the match, that is such a big disadvantage. So, yeah, I think Iran have been... It is quite unlucky, but I cannot put them any higher than the mid-30s for this reason. They still have other solid offensive pieces. Obviously, Mehdi Taremi. This man is a cult hero at this point for Iran. There's Mohebi and Gayadi, but they're not that experienced at the highest level. I don't know if they'll stand up to the pressure of a World Cup. And the backline, man. The less said, the better. There isn't a single player under the age of 30 in the Iranian backline. It's so finished. These guys, they're geriatric. I'm sorry. If you go up against like a pacey offense, you're completely cooked. So, yeah, I mean, luckily for Iran, they're actually not in too difficult of a group. So they could pull some tricks here, but I think they're pretty hard capped.
Yeah, and I also have them 33rd, right after Uzbekistan. I mean, I'd like to think they've shaken off the geopolitics and that factor, like clouding their mentality somewhat.
I mean, even if they're not thinking about it,
it's gonna come back to a different country. That's the problem. Is they've been good in their last like 3-4 games. I mean, they won 5-0 against Costa Rica, absolutely smashed them. It's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. The worst Costa Rican
generation, though. To be fair,
yes. But my point is, it's going to come back to bite them when they have to start flying to every game. It will return. And yeah, it's like they've maybe gotten rid of some of the external politics, not so much the internal, because Sardar Azmoun got accused of treason, and now he's not coming. I don't know. I love Mehdi Taremi. I don't think he can pick up all the slack for Azmoun. So I agree with you. They are hard capped, for sure.
Honestly, I'll say this. If Mehdi Taremi scores 3 goals at this World Cup, he might be able to walk into the IRGC and just become the Ayatollah. Like, unironically, this man has the potential to become an absolute living legend for Iran. He is past his prime, but there's still something there. Okay, we are shifting complete gears for my 33rd place team. I have no idea how you're going to feel about this one. It's going to be Scotland.
Not unreasonable. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Here's the thing. Midfield, very, very good, right? Scott McTominay, Scott McSauce, the Scottish Maradona. I mean, there are infinite names for this man. He is that guy. They also have other they have John McGinn, the captain of Aston Villa. I glaze that guy every other week on this channel. They got Ryan Christie in the midfield, who I also plays every other week on this channel playing for Bournemouth. But the offense. Che Adams, Ben Doak, I don't know, man. There's not really a whole lot going on there. They also have solid fullbacks, Kieran Tierney, Andy Robertson is not at his peak anymore, but he's still a pretty solid player. They've got Aaron Hickey as well, but again, like, you need good offensive players. You need somebody who can score if you want to do well at a World Cup. And they don't have that. I mean, unless you wanted to score all your goals out of set pieces and Scott McSaw screamers, okay, sure, fine. But as you pointed out before, it's always very risky when that is your main avenue of attack.
Yeah, which is why I have them 32nd.
This is okay. That's what this is.
Okay, their stock has slipped quite a bit since the World Cup qualifiers, right? Which itself was not an immensely difficult campaign for Scotland. But since then, 1-0 losses to...
Denmark's a formidable side.
Okay, who else did they have, though, besides Denmark?
It doesn't matter. You have to be first.
Okay, fine. Fair. 1-0 losses to Japan and Cote d'Ivoire, but not especially narrow 1-0 losses. Their backline was shaky as hell, and they could not produce anything in attack either. It's like, if they were lucky, they'd end up with a 0-0. I do still have to give them some credit for the qualifiers. They scored consistently, did so against Denmark too, for example. Didn't need any extra rounds to qualify. It was just the 6 group stage games. Yeah, and their last game, I think it was Curacao 4-1, right? With a great showing from Lawrence Shankland, who has struggled with the national team, but maybe he can establish himself as a starter to get Scotland back to scoring. The backline was also shaky once again in this game. Chong was gifted a goal for Curacao in this game. I'm not liking the defensive situation. I'm not liking...
Big up Tai Chong, though. You know, let's put some respect on that guy's name.
I agree. But I'm not liking, especially the center back situation. They have not found a stable partnership there. They've made so many switches. It's like 10 different pairings they've had or something. There are concerns to be had here, but there is also promise. Honestly, it's a decently nice roster. Well, we just have to see, really, can they step up? Because right now, it's a little questionable. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's very fair. This next team, I really struggle to place them. I feel like you make a solid case for them to be 10 places lower or 10 places higher. I'm gonna put Sweden in 32nd, though. This is such a tough...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, is this because you have them from 31st?
We'll see about that.
Oh my god, you're gonna have them in like 20th. Holy shit. I'm gonna flame the... Actually, honestly, no, depending on your logic, you could make the argument. Here's the thing, right? Obviously, they were absolute dog shit in the first round of all qualifiers. I think they lost... Was it them who lost to the Faroe Islands?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty low, man. That's not good. I think they had like 3 points in 10 matches, or like 8 or whatever it was.
Oh, hold on, no. It was Czechia that lost to Faroe Islands. That's who it was.
You're right, Czech.
Yeah, Sweden were just generally.
They were just terrible. They were absolutely. They absolutely sucked. They sacked their coach. They signed Graham Potter. They get wins against a relatively, I don't want to say easy, but a relatively manageable UEFA playoff qualification spot. They get carried by Victor Gyökeres. And here's the thing with Sweden, right? What is their play style? I get that Graham Potter was just doing whatever it took to win, but again, like, once you're at the World Cup, you need to have a tactical identity, and I don't know what it is. Is it playing for the counter, which could work, because obviously you have Gyökeres, Isak, Afi Lang are very, fast-paced players. Is it playing possession, because that's more of the style that Graham Potter is himself, more used to, the style that he typically has played, at least at club level, right? I'm not really sure what to make of the Swedish side. Also, part of the way they've been playing, I think part of why it's been successful is because other teams are willing to have possession and let them play on the counter, and that really works well for them. But when you're in a 3-4-3 system, you need your central midfielders to do a lot of work for you offensively. And I don't really see it on this squad. Bergvall and Ayari are their 2 center midfielders, and they're good at ball retention, at winning balls, but they're not very good, in my opinion, at actual playmaking. And if you're going to have to break down a low block or play in possession, that's what you need your center backs to do for Sweden. So could they perform well? Could I be convinced to put them a lot higher or a lot lower? In out of direction? Yes, but I'm gonna need to see more. Obviously, I mean, Graham Potter has been here for like 4 or 5 matches, so obviously there's not too much of a sample size for me to judge on here. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of the squad at all.
Yeah, I do have Sweden 31st actually, and it's you could have them play on the counter. I know they did that against Poland. Basically, had like 35% possession and scored 3 goals. It was a narrow win, but a win is a win, and Poland was definitely good opposition. However, 3 goals scored is the exception for Sweden, not the rule. You look at their roster and you might think that this forward line has got Isak, Alanga, and Gyökeres. You'd think there'd be goals to go around, but in World Cup qualifying, there were not. They lost twice to Kosovo without scoring.
That's what I was
It
thinking
was
of.
an overall terrible group stage showing that was only saved by, of course, their Nations League performance. They've, I guess, done a bit more scoring since then. I know they drew Greece and it was like a 2-2, right? Um, yeah, they also just got hit hard by Norway. Then they did draw against Greece, who themselves lost to Paraguay not long ago. Now, I do think Paraguay is quite the strong team, but again, Greece losing to them after drawing Sweden doesn't reflect too well on Sweden, nor does Sweden losing to Kosovo twice, who themselves didn't make the World Cup, and then they also lost to Czechia a few days ago.
Right.
It's
Also, by the way, that Norway match, it could have been a lot worse. Norway substituted everybody after
right.
halftime, so.
Yeah, I mean, friendlies let you use more subs, and they took all of them. Right. There's potential here, obviously. I mean, again, just looking at that forward line, Isak, Gyökeres, Alanga, right? There's potential for lots of scoring, but what we have seen as of late has not been that. It's not been great. So I can't put Sweden too high up.
Okay, fair enough. This is where I have Czechia in 31st. And it's a bit higher than you, and I don't disagree with your placement necessarily because it's very difficult, in my opinion, to place this team. Because their style of football it's kind of similar to Uzbekistan, except they've actually shown it, they've actually have a track record of succeeding with it. It is, again, just play extremely physical. And part of what makes it work for them is not only do they play physical, they actually have a striker that can finish. I mean, they have Patrick Schick, who is by all accounts, a very solid player at Bayer Leverkusen, right? The rest of the pitch, you just play physical, you park the bus, you do what you got to do. They have Thomas Shushak, they have Krejci, who are captains for their Premier League sides, respectively. Now, to be fair, they are 2 Premier League sides that are not going to be in the Premier League next season, but still, there's something there. So you have leadership, you have physicality, you have heart. Those are some pretty important factors at a World Cup. And if you combine that with also very good set pieces and a striker who's actually consistent, I think there's a fair shot for them to be in the high 30s or even maybe a little bit higher. Like if somebody put them in like 28th or something, I would not really have too much of an argument against that. They're just really well built for a World Cup, is what I'm saying.
There is, I think, a lot of potential movement in this area of the rankings. I would just say Iran is the one team here where it's like I have them hard capped and they're not going to get too far. Unfortunately, for reasons largely out of the team's control. But for the other guys, I think they can move around. Okay, 30th place then. I have DR Congo, the Leopards. They are clean sheet merchants. And what I mean by that is look at their World Cup qualifiers or their games in AFCON and the African Nations Championship. It's now discontinued, but there was one of those last year. They will play lower ranked teams and very often beat them 1-0, maybe 2-0. It makes sense if you look at where the quality is on their squad. Their captain, Mbemba, is a center back. They have Masuaku, Wan-Bissaka, Axel Tuanzebe, right? What they don't have is a great forward line. So they get comfortable wins against these lower African sides, but still only by like a goal or 2-0. And if you translate that to higher ranked teams, what you're going to end up with is draws, like a 0-0 against Denmark a few days ago, or this one wasn't a clean sheet, but a KG 1-1 versus Senegal. And I don't know if they could go out with their forwards that they have and actually win these games if they even tried to. They just don't have enough wins for me. Hence why I've got to put them down here.
I also have them 30th, and I also have the exact same reasoning. Like you said, Mbemba, Twanzebe, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Masakao is a very solid back four. But the offense is very questionable. So Yohan Wissa is, in theory, supposed to be their star striker, but people who watch the Premier League know that this man has had an absolute howler of a season at Newcastle this year. They also have Bakambu, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't really trust their strikers to do much. They're going to need a score at some point. But the thing with DR Congo, at least, is, I said earlier, like, they are a better Uzbekistan, in my opinion. And at least, Uzbekistan's defense, it's mostly just based off of Kusanov, whereas DR Congo, their entire back four is really solid. You could make a good argument, I would say, even, that they're the best defense in Africa. And there are quite a few African teams, as you may or may not have noticed, that we have not mentioned yet. So, yeah, I mean, that makes them a very scrappy side. It makes them a side who, you mentioned earlier, Uzbekistan basically need to get draws against the strong teams in their group. You could make the same argument for Jarkal potentially, but I think they're much more likely to actually get those draws than Uzbekistan, because I really trust the project that they have going on.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, then, out of the 30s, and I'm going to have us here. Canada is in 29th place. By the way, actually, because we've talked about how friendlies could be going on, like, as we're working on this video. There's one
We're playing
that we're
Ireland as we
playing right
speak.
now, and we've actually just scored. Except
Who scored?
we haven't scored. It was an O'Brien own goal. So, but we are up 1-0. We are up 1-0 though. But
right.
Yeah. I wish I could put us higher, okay? But the injuries and match fitness really are an issue for us right now. Our recent games, I want to say, have been decent, going back even to the Canadian Shield tournament when we beat Ukraine, lost on pens to Cote d'Ivoire. But we're not at the level we were at Copa, right? During the Copa America 2 years ago. The way we played at the Gold Cup a year later, I think that could tell you as much, that we've dropped off a decent amount. I don't want to say too much about us. We have a video on the three hosts of this tournament, Canada, the US, Mexico, that I highly suggest you watch if you want more in-depth analysis on any of the host nations. But for now, unless more of our guys can really get back to speed, because there are quite a few people here who are off it, and we can clear up the uncertainty around the roster as well, I think this is about right for us. Maybe a place or two higher, but not much further than that.
Okay. I think, because also with the injury thing, right? I mean, we can find out later in this match. Will Ali Ahmed play, for example? That's a question I want to get found out.
Right.
I'll be honest, I have him higher, but it's probably because I'm being biased. So, fair enough. I think you probably honestly have a better ranking for them than I do. My 29th place team, though, is a team that I think has been generationally overrated coming into this tournament. It's the Koreans. They're very reliant on their key players. Hyungmin Son is not his peak anymore. At his peak anymore, he's still very solid, but he's obviously not at his peak. He used to be a winger. He now has to play as a striker because he doesn't have the pace or the dribbling ability that he once did. Hwang In-bom is basically their entire midfield. He's a very solid midfielder, but they have no one else. And Kim Min-jae is essentially their entire backline, who also very solid, but again, you have no one else. The front three, though, paired with Hyungmin Son is where the strength lies, right? Hwang Yi-chan, Lee Kang-in playing as the wingers. It is a very solid front three, but I do just sort of think that the other 6 players in the starting 11 are pretty mid, and therefore there are a lot of weaknesses, and good teams can definitely, let's say, make them found out, so to speak. I will say, part of the problem is that they don't really play to their strengths, in my opinion. I think the best way South Korea can play, especially a tournament like this, is use this sort of turtle and play on the counter. Because, again, the front three is so good. But they try to play in possession, which would be a big problem against, stronger teams at the tournament. And they don't have very strong fullbacks, which means that whenever they lose the ball, they're in a lot of trouble. Right? Like, Kim Min-jae cannot be everywhere on the back line at once. So, here, I think in theory, if they sort out the tactics, I could see something. I could see them do actually quite well, but I just don't really trust them to make good tactical adjustments for this Korean side. I just haven't seen it over the past few years. So they have the quality to be higher, but I'm going to put them 29th.
Yeah, I have them 28th actually, and this is something we discussed in our last video. In our last video, we did discuss this, right? How they had to change formations recently because of injuries. To go to a 3-back with wingbacks, basically. Yeah, we talked a bit about this, discussing like how they'd match up against Canada. There are some real depth issues here, though. That's the main thing, particularly in that midfield, which was struggling while Inbom was gone, notably with their 4-0 loss to Cote d'Ivoire. He's a key figure on this team. He does look to be back healthy for the World Cup, which is good for Korea. But they've had injuries in other places too, like Cho Yu-min in defense. He's not making it to the tourney. That has caused an immense amount of uncertainty around that back line and the roster choices and literally just what formation to use even. It's just not what you want to be having right now. This close to the World Cup. This is not what you want to be dealing with. It's very similar to Canada, if anything. But I do have them slightly ahead of us. It's less of an issue for them. Still not great to have, though.
Fair enough. Well, my next team is also, in my opinion, very overrated. It is the Egyptians. They have a pretty strong offense. They have Marmoush and Salah, who are arguably two of the best African attackers of all time. Maybe it's too early to say for Marmoush because he's a relatively young player, but you definitely can't argue with Salah's achievements. Not that long ago, we made a video and a segment of it was glazing Mo Salah's Premier League career. He is one of the greatest Premier League attackers of all time, as you, as a Liverpool fan, would know. But it's the rest of the team. The rest of the team is where I'm very concerned. The defense, I mean, okay, their best center back, I don't know how to pronounce his name, unfortunately, the guy who plays at Nice. He's just coming back from injury, so there is a bit of a question mark going around.
Abdul Monem, I think. Abdul Monem.
Yes. Yeah. Al Shanawi, their goalkeeper, he's like, I don't know, he's very old, he's way past his prime as well.
Oh, he's like 37, 38, something.
Yeah, he's like 37 or 38, so it's
and I think they have another keeper, I want to say it's like Soliman, who's also 38, it's
it's not. Yeah. They do have solid playmakers like Trezeguet and Iman Asher, I will give a little bit of credit to, but is it enough to actually break down a low block? Especially if they go a goal down, they actually need to be good playmaking wise in possession? I'm not sure. I'm just not convinced by their team. They did make the semifinals of the last AFCON, which was, I mean, it's definitely a step in the right direction. And, okay, I wouldn't be shocked if they surprised the World Cup. Like, they have the capacity to do so, but I haven't seen it yet, I guess.
Yeah. 27th, I have, not following you this time, I actually have Australia here, the Socceroos. I think they have had some very impressive wins, like against Japan as well as against us. I mean, we're not an elite team, but we are, you could say, around their level, or that would be the expectation for them. So they did beat us. And that was right around as well when we drew Colombia and beat Venezuela. Australia, unfortunately, lost to both those teams not long after. But it does show they're at the caliber where they could eke out a win against Colombia. Not saying it'd be the likely outcome, but a possible one, right? And respectable 2-1 loss to the US as well. My problem with Australia is the big scheduling gap they've had recently, particularly for like elite opposition. They played Colombia and Venezuela in November of 2025. Since then, they played the FIFA series in March and beat Cameroon. It was like a 1-0 win. Not a bad team, but it's not one that's playing at the World Cup. And thumped Curacao as well, 5-1. A World Cup team, but safe to say the worst of the bunch, right? And then, so now at the end of May, they played Mexico and they lost 1-0. That gap is a little bit of a concern for me. It's a solid team, but I'm slightly worried about the match fitness. I forget who it's against, but I think they have a friendly tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But my next team, for that reason, will just like barely edge them out for me.
I think that's understandable. That is fair. My 27th place team is going to be Algeria. I think they have a pretty strong offense, but like Egypt, it's a little bit aging. I think they're kind of over-reliant on Riyad Mahrez, who is long past his prime. Again, I'm a Leicester fan. I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but he is objectively way past his prime. And their style of play, while entertaining, I mean, we mentioned earlier, right? They're in the Jordan group, the group where everybody plays offensive football, which will be fun. It's an entertaining style of football, but it's not the best it's not necessarily the best tactics to use at a World Cup, right? They basically always play possession ball, and if the other team has a better midfield than you, and you play possession ball, you're finished. They recently had a friendly against the Netherlands where they basically had the same amount of possession as them. They did win, but it's only because the Netherlands can't finish for shit, right? So I don't even know. I don't know if that's gonna work as well when you're up against the Austrias and the Argentinas of the world. So there's some concerns there. And I would also say I don't see like I don't really see a strong enough backline, in my opinion, for them to be able to park the bus very effectively if they decide to. At least they haven't shown it yet to me. The one reason I think they could still do pretty well is just because Petkovic has a very strong resume of doing well at these tournaments, right? I mean, he was the former Swiss manager and led them to consistent round of 16 at least um, qualifications. So I could definitely see Algeria qualify for the next round. I would not be surprised at all. I haven't fully decided my groups yet, but I think there's a pretty good chance they do think that they make it out of their group. But yeah, I can't place them much higher. Like, I can't really see them. They're not a team that's very conducive to getting upsets, I guess, when they go up against the really elite sort of teams.
Fair. Okay. I am going to have Egypt in 26th.
Okay.
I think, yeah, Australia's wins in the past half year or so, again, against us in Japan, are more convincing, I think, than Egypt's big wins against, like, Cote d'Ivoire in the AFCON. Nigeria in a friendly, who they then lost to in the AFCON. And they did have a thorough beating of Saudi Arabia, but then, again, we both have Saudi rated pretty low, right? I prefer Australia's wins, but Egypt have been playing more consistently as of recent, namely because of the AFCON at the end of last year, start of this year. I don't agree with people putting Egypt in the top 20, top 15 of the tournament.
Yeah, that's
Athletic,
crazy. I'm sorry.
Athletic, I'm
what the
looking
fuck
at
are we
you
doing?
because I know the
What are we
Athletic had
doing?
Egypt 15th. This area, 25th to like 27th, I think this is their current level, around Australia's. But again, because they've been playing games when the Aussies haven't, I'm going to put the Pharaohs ahead.
Okay, I think we're gonna soon converge again because I'm gonna go on the teams that you've mentioned that I haven't yet. My 26 is gonna be Canada. Maybe I have them a little bit high, but I gotta back my own national team, man. Come on, like, let's go. Vive les Hoosh, man. Like, let's get some results. Let's get some wins. We don't have we have a solid roster, right? I mean, we have a good midfield, Kone and Estacchio. We've got decent wingers in Buchanan, and hopefully Ali Ahmed can actually play 90 minutes at World Cup. We don't know yet. The issue is, like, we don't have great finishing, for one. Injury problems can bug us quite a bit. We don't really have good discipline. Like, we give up way too many red cards. Thankfully, by the way, last video we were talking about how we hadn't there was a question over who was going to be a starting goalkeeper. Thankfully, Jesse Marsh clutched up and actually said that Maxim Crepeau will be our starting goalkeeper, which definitely raises the floor of this national team quite a bit. Because if it was Dane St. Clair, oh boy, we might have been in big trouble. But I think this is like where we are. I think Canada is pretty middle of the pack. Decent, but not particularly good World Cup roster. Like, we're a team that could make the round of 16, but I don't think we can go any further than that.
Fair. Well, 25th, I do actually have one of our co-hosts. It is the US. This was
Okay.
a bit of a last-minute placement for me. I mean, they beat Senegal, right? And I was thinking, okay, finally this team has a little bit of upward momentum. It's back down for me because there are big concerns regarding a key player now. Yes, they've got real star power in attack and midfield. Balogun, McKennie, Tillman. Pulisic's been on bad form lately, but he can always pick up for the national team. It's that defense. We discussed this too in our last video, but what happens if Chris Richards can't play at center back? He might miss multiple early matches. It is looking like he'll at least miss the first. And there's so little depth in this backline given the amount of depth the US has elsewhere. Are you playing 38-year-old Tim Ream? Miles Robinson, who's okay back there. He's no Chris Richards. McKenzie is okay there as well, but he's never been that great for the US. And it is hard to trust an inexperienced trustee, no pun intended, who has very few caps for his nation. Again, watch our last video if you want more in-depth analysis on the squad, but when Richards hasn't been playing for the US, they've made some big defensive errors to let their opponents back into games. Even opponents that are not like truly elite. And if they don't have Richards playing, I think they're going to be in real trouble against World Cup caliber teams.
I hear it. I have them higher because I'm going to give them some credit for being a host nation. Like, there's always going to be a bit of a buff there. And unlike Canada and Mexico, they get it for the entire tournament, right? Because where Canada and Mexico, they stop playing in their own country after the round of 16, and that's even assuming that they actually win their groups. The U.S. are obviously going to be playing in the U.S. the entire tournament. At least they should be. I think, barring some like very weird, barring some very weird events, they might end up playing in Canada, like the round of 32 or something. I'm assuming that's not going to happen. Yeah, I think the U.S. definitely deserves an advantage because of that. And I have them higher. Again, this is the one other team that you mentioned that I haven't yet. It's going to be Australia. I think like all the teams here in like the mid to late 20s, very similar, right? And the reason I have them higher than teams like Canada, like Algeria, and like Egypt is because they actually have a more conducive style of football to the World Cup. They actually play a defensive style, and they have a solid center back pairing in Sirkadi and Harry Sutar to actually back it up. They're not very strong offensively. Obviously, they've got Torre, they've got Aaron Kuda, who are not the most, let's say, consistent players, but midfield is okay. I mean, they have Jordan Boss. He's a relatively decent player. They are pretty decent at set pieces, and that, like, if you have a scrappy 0-0 match, which is the exact kind of match Australia want to play, that could be a huge advantage. And I also think that this team just has a really, really good mentality going along with them right now. I think we made this point last video, but Australia are kind of like the US 10 or 20 years ago, where they maybe don't have the most quality on paper, but they play as a team. They're very physical. They have a huge amount of self belief. And I mean, last World Cup, everyone thought they were going to finish last in their group, and they made it out of the group stage and gave Argentina a genuine scare in the round of 16. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to do that again, but I think that goes to show that this is a side that, one, they're clearly a regional powerhouse in Asia. I mean, they won the AFC Asian Cup like what was it, 2017 or relatively recently. I don't remember the exact year, and they have a history of performing at least pretty decently at World Cups as well. So I can't really place them too low. I think I don't really have a problem with your placement, but again, like this is another one where I see a lot of people suggesting that Australia are by far the worst team in their group. Obviously, I haven't listed anybody else in their group yet, but I don't think it's like close. I don't think it's a big separation there. It's not clear to me that Australia are the worst team. I made this point again. I made this point before, but Group D is by far like the closest group. All four teams are very close to each other, and as you're going to see pretty soon, I have all four teams very close together in this ranking.
Yeah, yeah. Well, into the top half of the teams then at this tournament, I have got Uruguay here. Not Uruguay, I show speed. It is Uruguay, and given the fact that they lost 5-1 to the US, I'm aware that ranking them ahead of America is a choice. But while the US are looking more questionable compared to back during that November window, I think Uruguay are looking a lot better. After a lot of questions were asked of him, Bielsa has steadied the ship. He came out against England and Algeria with somewhat more relaxed tracking instead
I
of.
don't know if I would say he steadied the ship.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, compared to 5-1, right?
Well, okay, compared to five, sure, compared to five. Okay, losing 5-1 to the US is like the lowest of this is still the worst Uruguay in a generation.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like, clearly. They can't get wins. Like, steadying the ship is they got some draws.
Right. No, yeah.
That's not good. That's not the Uruguay that we're used to.
But this
Us,
is
me, you, our childhood, the people watching, they're used to seeing
Okay.
a much better Uruguay than this.
Yeah, but you do have them higher than me, no? Or at least in the same spot.
Yeah, like
so
one place higher.
Okay. I mean, here's the other thing I will say. They didn't have Valverde against England or Algeria. Or sorry, no. They had Valverde against England and Algeria, which they didn't against the US. He was able to steady the transition. And Sergio Rocher in goal, I think a bit underrated. He was able to dictate the defense. And largely through his help, they compressed the vertical spaces and stopped Algeria from getting any shots on target in that game. I think that, at least, was a very good showing. It's upward momentum for them, ultimately. I don't know how much it can continue, but I do think, at least, it is a big improvement over 5-1. And if their form keeps up anything like that, yeah, they will be getting significantly better. So it's upward momentum for them. It's somewhat downward for the US. I have them close together now, but if the US doesn't get their shit together roster wise, and if they have more injury concerns, Uruguay could gap them further, honestly.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, this is okay. Here's the thing, right? I could say, look, in 2014, Brazil lost to Germany 7-1. From that perspective, Brazil are better now, but clearly Brazil are better 12 years ago than they are now. So I don't think you can just take one horrific result. That is indicative of how the national team was at that point, to be fair. But you can't take that one like horrific standout result and say, Bielsa saved the ship because he got a few draws. Not even wins, just draws.
Okay, they were okay, but I think it was a good window though. I'll just say that. England and Algeria.
Yeah, okay, it was a good window, yes, but only because of how low.
Not really. No, I honestly think
you don't England. I think they should be expected to get a win. They should be able to get a win against Europe. Not Europe. Sorry, they are Europe. They should be able to get a win against Algeria. You don't think so?
Sure, I guess. I mean, you probably have.
It's not good to not be able to score a goal.
But it's just that the other thing is I think they were technically the home team, but it wasn't actually. These games were all in America, no?
This one I think it wasn't in America, but it was not in either country.
I should probably check it. I know it was a third party thing. Like a neutral venue.
But even at third party, the Uruguay should still win. Okay, anyways.
Okay, where do you got him?
Okay.
I mean, it's
my
not
24th place team is in Paraguay. Yeah, the
Paraguay.
other
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how much higher you have them, but I think they're very similar to like Australia and the US in their group. I have all these teams very close together. Again, very similar to Australia. Set piece merchants, strong. They also have a very strong center back pairing. That's Omar Alderete and Gustavo Gomez. And the weakness is they don't have as good of an offense as Australia do. In my opinion, they're only I would say really they're only particularly offensively strong striker right now for the national team, at least, is Julio Enciso. I would say Miguel Almiron can play well, but he's a little bit hit or miss. But I do think they have a better midfield. They have more experience simply because they're incomable and they play all like the best. They play some of the best teams in the world like twice every qualifying cycle, so they're more experienced from that POV. And I just get the feeling that these guys, they have a bit more staying power than Australia. Like, they have the experience. They played in the Copa America, which was in the U.S., and the U.S. is a very weird environment to play, especially in the summer, right? Because it's not like playing in Saudi Arabia, but it's also very humid, which a lot of teams are also not. Like Australia, I don't know if they're going to be used to that sort of style, that sort of temperature conditions. So I am going to put Paraguay a little bit ahead of them. If you want to make the argument that they should be higher, I could make that argument as well. But I do think it's basically a toss-up. How good is the offense going to hold up for Paraguay?
Okay, sure. 23rd then, I have got Mexico, who I think have been pretty consistently good as of late.
Low.
You think so? Okay.
23rd? Yeah, I think that's a little bit low.
I don't think these teams are too far apart either, though. Like, right around.
So you're saying... Wait, so you're saying Mexico is worse than Paraguay?
I do have them a bit below Paraguay, yes.
I mean, I think if Mexico and Paraguay played in Mexico, I would back Mexico to win. That's the lens I'm sort of looking at it.
Okay, fair.
Like, I think
maybe I'm looking at it a bit. Maybe I haven't considered the home advantage enough.
I don't think what you're saying is crazy. I think I've definitely taken the home advantage into more account than you. I don't think what you're saying is crazy, but I do think that I think Mexico should be a little higher.
Okay, sure. I mean, they have been pretty good as of late, though. That's the thing. And when I say as of late, I mean basically anything going back to like the Nations League in 2024, anything really after that horrendous Copa America.
Basically, what you're saying is in any time in Javier Aguirre's management.
Pretty much, yes.
Right. Yeah, so
that's what it is. So I'm
not gonna take the pre-Aguirre era against Mexico. I'm not gonna,
No. But that's what I'm saying. It's been just a very good tenure. Like, right. I don't have many complaints. There were actually some.
So by lately you mean 2 years. By lately you mean 2 years.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why I said since Nations League. Yeah. There have been some bad games, admittedly. 4-0 loss to Colombia was not great, but again, just generally, like, they had a great Gold Cup run. Of course, they won it. Draws to Japan and South Korea. That's hardly unreasonable. Those games were not neutral games either. And more recently, draws to Belgium and Portugal. That's pretty good. Win against Australia. just yesterday 5-1 against Serbia for the World Cup send-off. I mean, of course, Serbia aren't a World Cup team, but can't complain about 5-1, right? It's a good resume. I think just part of it is the reason why I have them a bit lower than you might is wins against big teams like the US has against Japan or Senegal, for example. But I think this is if I was to put him, if I saw someone put him like 20th, 21st, that would be fine for me as well. Like a range of around 3 places is pretty reasonable.
I'll just say now, I am within that range, so it's not. I don't have them like 15th or something. It is going to be relatively close. So, okay, so my 21st is Uruguay. Um, you've basically made a very solid point against them. I don't think people, especially Europeans, fully appreciate how down bad Uruguay is right now. So instead of even talking about the players, I just want to first start by giving some stats. Since the last Copa America 2 years ago, Uruguay have played 18 matches. They have failed to score in 10 of their 18 matches. They've only won 5 of their 18 matches. And in that span, they failed to beat Guatemala. It's shambolic. There's no offense. The front three is Darwin Nunez, Facundo Palestri, and Brian Rodriguez. And Darwin Nunez's career has fallen off a cliff at Saudi Arabia. He was already not that good at Liverpool. And this man has somehow gotten even worse. And the worst part of that is he's their best offensive option. When your best offensive option is Darwin fucking Nunez in 2026, you're not that good. You're just not. The rest of the squad is decent. The defense is decent. Valverde is obviously world class. But like again, when we were kids, Uruguay had world class talent, right? They had Diego Forlan, Luis Suarez, Edson Cavani. Where are those players nowadays? They're like this new Uruguayan generation is just so much worse than the Uruguay I'm used to seeing. I guess it's really disappointing.
I mean,
Again, like
yeah,
there's some
it's
solid, yeah.
it's like instead of Forlan or Suarez, we've got
Instead of
Nunez
instead of
and
Forlan and
Maxi
Suarez,
Maxi Araujo. We've got, so this is what we're looking
it's
at.
it's Araujo
Yeah,
and fucking and Darwin Nunez, bro. Like it's not. Yeah. I mean, listen, Bentancur, Araujo, like they're decent players. Like Jose Jimenez as well. They're not bad, but they're just not. Yeah, I mean, they're not the Uruguay that we're used to seeing. And I want to make the point, like, it's not just DFL like this time. Actually, a lot of people I think have Uruguay in the top 15, which is just shocking to me. I actually don't know what they've done to deserve that ranking. I think, I mean, they're very lucky that they have Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde in their group, which are two teams that we don't have in the top 40 even. So it might not even show in the group stages. I don't know who they're playing in the knockouts, but I get the feeling that they're going to have a rude awakening at some point, and the entire world is going to be there to see it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, Algeria, you listed a few teams ago. I have them 22nd. And I mean, just a few days ago, it was 23rd, is what I had them. They would have been behind Mexico, slightly behind Mexico for me. They do have wins against sizable African teams like DR Congo, plus Asian teams, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. I know they had a close loss to the UAE. Some notable losses too, like against Nigeria, but all in all, it's a decent resume, very similar to Mexico, I think. But for me, Algeria gets the edge because some of those games, those good wins, were also away from home. They played Iraq, that was in Qatar, or they played DR Congo, it was in Morocco. Which, though it's close by, I don't think it's quite a home game given the politics between those two. The locals will be coming to support DR Congo in that match. And the reason that why I've got him 20,
We know it's an AFCON, like all bets
yeah,
are off.
the reason I've got him 22nd now is because of another away game, which was a win against the Netherlands in Rotterdam. There is always in the World Cup, you're going to have a possibility of playing against a team that, just because there are more supporters of theirs in North America, maybe it's like an ethnic thing, they'll have a home game esque atmosphere. And Algeria is probably not going to be the team with the sort of home game vibe on their side. But if they can handle being disadvantaged in that sense, well, then that's great. Hence, I have bumped them just above Mexico. Of course, Mexico could get home advantage for a while, but eventually that's going to run out, right? Especially if they don't get their ideal playoff path. So for me, that'll bump Algeria just a bit ahead.
I think I would have put them higher, but it's like they objectively were the second best team against the Netherlands, even though they won. That's the only reason I don't have them higher. Well, I guess it's one of the reasons, not the only reason, of course. But I mean, I have seen a lot of people put Algeria in like the higher 20s, and it's not a crazy. Like I understand, it's an understandable. I think it's if you want to put them, you have them 22nd. I think that's reasonable. Um, yeah, yeah. You know, I'm not gonna say anything else because I don't want to spoil my later predictions. But sure. Okay, so my 22nd team is the USA. Again, I'm taking host
Okay.
advantage maybe more than you are as a factor. Again, like, yes, defensively it's questionable, but they have a very solid offense. You have Pulisic, you have Balogun, and especially, you know, with the way they play like an elite side even though they're not one, with like tactically speaking. I think some teams are gonna struggle at with the home environment in the US. Like it's very difficult, I would argue, to play well against against such a rowdy crowd. The United States fans, you know, they're a little bit special, but it's still not an easy atmosphere to play in. Like we've seen the way like we've seen Mexico and Canada. Maybe not recently because of the technical thing, but in the past, Canada and also other teams in CONCACAF really struggled to do well in the United States, and that is going to be a big advantage for them. So if you're not factoring them, they go quite a bit lower, but I am going to do that, and so I have them 27.
Yeah, the home advantage for the US is really maximized because every CONCACAF game is in the United States. Yeah.
Right.
But
That yeah. Also, every Gold
right.
Cup, every Nations League, it's always in the U.S.
In the US. Yeah.
Because
Okay.
Mexico doesn't have the money and Canada doesn't have the infrastructure.
Right. 21st, I have Paraguay. So that'll kind of put us, I think, basically just about all the teams we've covered now. It's been a great recent track record for them. Wins against Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay in like one window in the CONMEBOL qualifiers. Strong 2-2 draw versus Colombia as well. I am concerned there's been a drop off recently. Not a big one, but it is there. They had a friendly away in South Korea, lost 2-0, but I honestly thought that game was decent. Then they played the US and they lost 2-1. But in terms of their like offense, their shooting, that game was a lot more questionable. I think they were honestly a little lucky to get the one goal there. Close wins against Mexico and Greece, fair enough, and a close loss to Morocco. Again, it's hardly a bad record. And I think they can get far with this kind of form. It's just not quite what they looked like in qualifiers. So I would have had them maybe a bit higher back then, but 2 or 3 places lower now. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Okay, so we're not actually fully closed yet because I don't have Mexico yet. I don't have the 21st. My 21st place team. This might be a little low. I feel like I'm second guessing this as in saying it now. My 21st place team is going to be Austria because
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, because they're another team. I mean, I think it's every team in their group. They don't play a system that's conducive to upsets. Their head coach Ralph Rangnick literally invented the gegenpress, and they're going to be very aggressive. But if you can break that down, I think this Austrian side becomes quite beatable. You know, they have a solid backline, Conrad Leimer, Kevin Danso, David Alaba, but it's not an unbeatable backline. And to be quite honest, like, their midfield, like, okay, Sabitzer is quite good, but I don't think they have the midfield to justify playing a gegenpress. I really don't. And that might be fine against like Algeria and Jordan. Like Argentina, I have a feeling they could get destroyed. And then beyond that, they play a good midfield. Austria might be finished. So I don't know where you have them. This might be a point of disagreement a little bit, but I just don't think that they have a tactical style that's well suited for the World Cup.
Okay. Not that much higher, to be honest. I mean, you'll see. But
Okay.
20th, I have Turkey here. Now, Turkey's got a great attack. They rarely can push for goals. Often they do find just about as many as they need. Like they drew Spain 2-2 away from home to finish off World Cup qualifying, or handily beating Georgia and Bulgaria before that. I don't remember exactly what the scores were. But the attack was hitting. When the attack's not hitting, it feels like everything else falls apart, like we saw in the 6-0 obliteration at the hands of Spain. It's just very hard to predict this side they are on a good streak of games right now. Not going crazy with the scoring, actually, but they're winning consistently, which is why I've got them a few places into the upper half of the table. On a good day, they could seem like they should go a lot higher, and on a bad day, down into the bottom half potentially. So they're quite the wild card, quite the dark horse potentially, and we will just have to see which side of Turkey shows up at this tournament.
Fair enough. I mean, they are a side where when they're not rated, they play very well, and then when they become a dark horse, they just completely choke. I think of Euro 2024 vs Euro 2021 as like the primary example of that.
Turkey
So
Turkey is Chelsea when they're told they're in a title race. That's Turkey. No?
so disrespectful.
Yeah.
No, I mean you're not wrong. It's a crazy thing to say, man.
Yeah. They fall off. They fall off. That's all it is.
All right. Sure. Okay, anyways, so this is where Mexico is for me, 20th. Like I said, a little bit higher than you. Again, I don't want to just keep ranting over the same thing. We talked about Mexico for like 30 minutes last video, and you already talked about them. Look, strong attack in Raul Jimenez, but not much going on beyond that. Set piece merchants, which can be very useful. Okay backline, but they can definitely be overrun by a strong midfield. So I would say they're very Austria-esque. That's kind of why I have them, like right next to each other. And I think, like Austria, they're kind of hard capped. Once they play a particularly strong midfield, it's over for them. But I think Mexico, they can do relatively decently at this World Cup.
Okay, yeah. And into the teens now. I have got Cote d'Ivoire in 19th. I think this is very interchangeable with me, for me, with the next team that I've got. But yeah, the Ivorians have been great these past few months. I know back in November they lost to Saudi, though that was, to be fair, a somewhat better Saudi side because, like I said before, the Saudis have just been on like a slip and slide downhill.
Yeah, it's getting
so
bad.
yeah. But for Cote d'Ivoire, since then, they went well into the AFCON with a very respectable 3-2 loss to Egypt as their exit. Beat Scotland 1-0 and South Korea 4-0 with also a somewhat diminished starting lineup. And then with their full lineup, they beat France yesterday. Or not completely full, but closer to it. They did beat France with, I think, quite a good showing across the roster.
They deserve to win.
It was a well-deserved win, yes. Not much else to say. I think they're just looking good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. They're also my 19th place spot, and I want to talk a little bit because I think you did a good summary of the tactics. I want to talk a little bit more about the background of this team because I don't think people outside of people who are not following AFCON might not be aware of this. In 2023, Cote d'Ivoire, you're smiling because you already know the story. In 2023, Cote d'Ivoire hosted the AFCON. In the group stages, they had 1 win and 2 losses. They had 3 points. They barely made it out of the group. The only reason they made it out of the group was because AFCON has the same third place rule that the World Cup has. So Cote d'Ivoire did the most baller move possible. They sacked their head coach mid-tournament, got their assistant coach, Emerse Faye, and they won the whole fucking tournament. They won the whole damn thing. Beat Senegal in round of 16. Beat Mali. They beat Nigeria in the final. I can't remember who they beat in the semifinal.
Right.
But they just from there
DR Congo, I think.
DR Congo, who are a solid team as well. They swept the entire African continent, and they have never looked back since. Seriously? And I think this win against France is the culmination of that, right? And I don't even want to say culmination, because, hey, this World Cup, they could be a real fucking dark horse. They really could. I will talk a little bit about the squad. They play a very fun style of football. They basically play like prime Leicester City, in that they can sit back and be compact, and they're a very solid team. But man, on the counter, they are fucking pacey. They basically play a 4 attacking system at once, and their front line is insane. They have Yandi Omande, Nicolas Pepe, Sam Nadingra, Ahmed Diallo, Eli Wahi. Like they are stacked. The one potential disadvantage I would say is the midfield is aging. Frank Kessié is 29. Sako Fofana is 31. They have Christ Dulahe as a 20-year-old, but I'm assuming he's not going to start. And he doesn't really have, the experience that a lot of the other guys have. So they could be vulnerable to a team that has a lot of physicality and pace. But other than that, it's very difficult to beat this Cote. They don't really have a lot of weaknesses, Like, when your biggest weakness is oh, your midfield is 29 and 31. Like it's not, they're a good side. They are. I mean, I have more than one dark horse, but they're definitely one of my dark horses.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the midfield for them is a bit of a weakness, but you've still got Sangare there,
It's
right?
not even weak. It's
And
like
then
relatively weaker.
yeah, and then backline, I mean, Diamande, Kosanu for Atalanta, Agbadu off of
Dude,
Wolves.
how
I
do you
mean,
have
Wolves
two
have
dual
a
minds
very
and they're both ballers? Explain that one.
yeah. It's genuinely a nice lineup, and of course you can talk about Geladue, who just scored yesterday against France, right? He's in the fucking back line too, man. It's good. It's a very nice attacking
I don't think
like
people are
forward.
appreciating how good this
Yeah,
side is.
just a
They,
very
they
good
are good
front
enough.
foot team, genuinely.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
anyways,
well
who's your
then
18th?
18th, I have Austria. I won't say
Okay.
much more on them than you did. It's just I was honestly pretty pleased with their recent games because they'd been like somewhat starved of high level teams to play since even the Euros 2 years ago. They beat the Dutch in the group stage. I think it was Turkey they got knocked out against. Since then, we haven't seen much because their qualifiers were not against especially difficult teams. So I've been looking to these recent friendlies for a sign. And I'm pretty impressed. 5-1 win over Ghana, 1-0 against South Korea, not an enormous win, but they also didn't have their full starting lineup since like Danso, Alaba, and a few others were missing. And now a 1-0 win over Tunisia despite a first half red card. So match fitness was a concern for me, but not really anymore. And I am quite happy to have him in the top 20.
Yeah, fair enough. We're basically just going to do a little rotation again because it's a team you mentioned a little bit earlier. My 18th place team is going to be Turkey. Good offense, good midfielders, Arda Güler, Kenny Yildiz, Halkan Çalhanoğlu, Beres Yilmaz. This is a very, very solid side. They have the advantage, like anybody on their team can score, but Kadioglu scored a goal in, I think it was against Romania in UEFA qualifier, so it's a very solid side overall. So I guess it's just the side, like they definitely have upset potential. I just, maybe I'm like overrating this, but I'm just a little bit worried that they're gonna choke again. They are prone to choking. Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much more because you've already given a fair critique. I think that's one issue. They also don't really have a great striker. Like Kareem, their striker Kareem. Again, I can't pronounce his name. My bad. He's not really a real striker. Like they're just sort of playing him there. They don't have a real striker. I guess Denny's good, but I don't think they're gonna start him. That's like the one I guess criticism I can make of the national team, but it's very solid, and they can definitely make a deep run.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, then 17th, and maybe we start to diverge again here, but I have Norway, who have had some questionable games recently, struggled quite a bit in attack without Holland when they played the Netherlands, lost 2-1, but I think they could have lost by more. I don't think they would have scored much more. Holland was all right against Switzerland, but the game overall was just like meh. A bit like Austria as well, I think, where they haven't had big teams to play since the Euros. In fact, of course, Norway weren't even at the Euros. They narrowly lost to Spain in the qualifiers, but they didn't make the tourney. And their qualifier games for the World Cup also opposition was not too difficult.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
save
Obligatory shame on
for
Italy. Yes.
right. I know they had a big loss to Austria, like a big loss in the Nations League. It has, to be fair, been a while, but maybe I would take small consideration of the head to head and have Norway behind. But they did win twice against Italy in World Cup qualification, which again, for all we do clowning Italy, they're a decent team, right? And at the
And
start
they
of June
beat
as
them by
well.
3 goals both legs
Yeah,
as
exactly.
well.
And then at the start of June, Norway had the big win against Sweden. The whole attack here was clicking. Holland didn't even play that game. It was Strand Larson putting in the work. And that
When
just
you're
like
getting
a
cooked by Strand Larson, man, it's hack it up.
Sweden. But good attacking showing for them, and that game for me gets them just ahead of Austria. So I have them 17.
That's fair. That's fair. I have them a little bit higher than you because there's one other team that I think if they played head to head, I would back them over, and that's gonna be Belgium. Belgium are kind of like Uruguay, where they're just really past their prime, man. At least like their best players, some of them are at least still here, but they're not, they're not at their best. I actually think Belgium could surprise some teams because I think people are like shitting on them so much that they might be like slightly underrated now. But yeah, they're obviously not the team they used to be. Defensively, a lot of question marks. Midfield is actually quite solid. Amadou Onana and Yuri Tielemans, very solid all pivot. And yes, KDB is aging. He's like 40 years old. But if Onana and Tielemans just lock up, the midfield, like defensively speaking, and all KDB needs to do is like sling passes, he can still do that. Like that's he still has the quality. So I could kind of see it working. They also have some pretty pacey wingers, Trossard, Doku. I know like Doku has a finishing problem, but sometimes just having that dynamism is like a bit of an advantage in itself. And then Lukaku and De Ketelaere, not the greatest striker options, but not terrible either. I think Lukaku is a little bit overhated. He is somebody who chokes in big games, but it's not like Belgium are trying to win the World Cup this year, so I don't know if that's going to be as much of a disadvantage for them in this case. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, Thibaut Courtois. Come on. Yeah.
Belgium, I've got them 16th. I mean, I think their most recent games have been pretty good. It would have been nice to get a clean sheet against the US. 5-2 is hardly bad, though. And they did get their clean sheet against Croatia, 2-0. Draw against Mexico, not too bad. I am a bit concerned about drawing Kazakhstan and North Macedonia and getting pushed hard by
Wales. That's called
UEFA
heritage.
Pushed hard by Wales in both qualifiers against them. These really aren't teams you should be having too much trouble against, as the guys ranked 9th by FIFA, but I guess that's part of why we don't trust that ranking, right? And compared to the teams in the top 15, not the greatest depth here, which does make a difference in the World Cup, of course. So, hence, I will have them just outside of the top 15.
Fair enough. So I'm swapping with you because my 16th place team is Norway. And I actually do think Norway have more upset potential. Like, they're more of a dark horse than Belgium are, even though they're very similar. It's just down attack, man. Like, that offense is unbelievable. Erling Haaland, a top 3 striker in the world. Alexander Storlov, a heavily underrated striker. I mean, we've talked so much good about him in our Champions League videos. You have Antonio Nusa, who's a pretty solid winger. Not the best at club form, but pretty good for the national team. Oscar Bob against Hauge. Those Bodo Glimt boys, man. Fucking fire. And you got a number 10 in Martin Odegaard, who doesn't really score a lot of goals himself, but he's been pretty solid form-wise for his national team, and it does provide a boost. It does mean that, the guys up top are going to be fed. And as long as you feed Erling Haaland, he's going to get you goals. Norway beat Italy 7-1 on aggregate across the 2 legs. They scored the most goals of any UEFA team in qualifying. Obviously, like you said, they had an easier group than a lot of these other European sides, but still, scoring the most goals. Like, when you have France, Spain, Portugal, like, when you think about the caliber of teams that are in UEFA, like, that's a pretty good achievement in of itself. The disadvantage, though, is they're so offensively strong that it hurts their defense. Like, they push up their fullbacks quite a lot. Like, Muller-Wolf, for example, really plays offensive style. I don't think that their fullbacks are good enough defensively to justify that. Italy do not have the talent to exploit that, but a good team could. So I definitely could see Norway struggling depending on who the team is. But at the same time, if their opposition team doesn't have very strong wingers, I could also see Norway make a deep run. So I haven't done I haven't filed out my World Cup bracket yet, but how far Norway goes really is dependent on who exactly they're playing. I will give one warning sign. I think Norway might be a little bit overhyped. I mean, I have them 16. I mean, that's pretty good, but I should remind people, they haven't been in the World Cup in decades. And it's very hard to do well in your first ever season, especially when you have so much pressure from being this hyped. So there is a chance it could flop. I highly doubt they lose to Iraq. I mean, that would be pretty tragic. But I don't know if I'll just say this. I don't know if they're going to finish third. They could finish higher in their group. We haven't mentioned Senegal or France yet, which is, that goes to speak of how difficult that group is, Group I. But also, if you finish third in Group I, which is not bad in and of itself, because it's such a difficult group, that means you're most likely going to play a first-place team. That means you're definitely going to play a first-place team. And so that could mean in round 32, Norway end up getting a very difficult opponent if they can't get a win against Senegal or France. And those are not guaranteed wins. So I think Norway are in a very tough spot right now. Very solid team, but very dependent on who their opponent is.
Yeah, fair. Okay, top 15 now. I have got Ecuador to start us off.
I do too.
This is such a gritty team. This backline, anyways. If you look at all of Ecuador's last games, they're either draws or narrow 1 goal wins because it is always the defense keeping the team in the game. That wall of a goalkeeper, Galindez, keeping the team in the game so that the attack can then just find the 1 goal they need, and that'll be enough. But that's also part of the issue and why I have them only just into the top 15. They can't push much with their attack. In their 1-1 draw against the Netherlands, for example, the Dutch were better for the first 10 minutes. Then Dumfries got a dumbass red card, and Ecuador naturally took control of the ball, but they couldn't push for much. They got a first half equalizer, a penalty, and besides that, there were shooting chances, but nothing clear cut. Enter Valencia did look decently dangerous, but it never seemed like they'd take a lead and never look back. No, it seemed like, partially because it's just Ecuador, and you expect this from Ecuador, it's going to be a draw. That's how they'll end off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe penalty shootouts can take them through the knockouts for a little while. I just don't think 0-0 or 1-1 draws are going to get you all too far. And it seems like that's what they're optimized for. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're optimized for the 1-0, but it's just the 1 is not always guaranteed. Look, I mean, this is a side that couldn't beat Canada when Canada had 10 men for the entire game, basically. That was a 0-0 draw, too. So it is really a tale of two halves, right? Is it crazy to say they have the best defense in world football? It's definitely top 3.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. You can't argue it's not top 3. There may be a better team out there for the first spot, but they are very, very good.
I mean, yeah, you can literally just list not even guys from smaller teams. If you want to go just Big 5 leagues, it's Hincapié, it's Estupinian, and it's Pacho, right? So
yeah, and then you got Moises Caicedo as CDM as well.
Yeah,
and then you also have João Ordonez, Pervis Estupinian as you mentioned, and then you can either have Pedro Vite or Alan Franco as the second part of the double pivot with Moises Caicedo. Like, that back six is generational. You're gonna struggle. Like, there were elite teams in South America that couldn't get a shot on target against Ecuador. That's how good the defense is. In CONMEBOL qualifiers, in 18 games, they conceded 5 goals. That is tied for the least in World Cup qualifying in CONMEBOL ever. Only Prime Brazil has ever matched that record. But then, like you said, offensively, well, Kendry Paez has not reached his potential. I don't think he will. Yeah, Nilson Angelo, John Yeboah, Gonzalo Plata. They're all okay players, but I don't trust them finishing wise. And it's gonna
dude,
be
I haven't heard from Nilson Angulo in ages, bro. Yeah, it's not.
I'll just say this: he plays for Sunderland, and I don't know if Sunderland fans knows he exists.
Yeah. You have a winger from Ecuador, guys. If you're any Sunderland fans watching, you do have one.
Yeah, just FYI, you do have this one guy. You're probably never going to play him, but he does exist. Look, in World Cup qualifying, like I said, they only conceded 5 goals. I think they only scored like 14, and nobody other than Ender Valencia scored more than 2. So Ender Valencia is this guy's like, I don't know how old he is. This guy's geriatric, and he's basically still the only reliable goal scorer. So it is a tale of two halves here. Like, one of the best defenses in the world and a dog shit offense. And like you said, in World Cup, going to 0-0 and winning off penalties, or going 1-0, I mean, that is a strategy that can work in a knockout format. Like, I definitely think, as long as Ecuador don't get bounced out in their group. Actually, they won't get bounced out because there's Curaçao's in their group. But once they make the knockouts, that's when they enter their final form. That's when they enter their, when they get, like, the supercharge, the power-ups. And they become a very deadly team. A team that nobody wants to face. Because they could really, like, make any team in the world go goalless against them. But yeah. Ecuador 15th. If they had an ounce of offensive quality, they would be top 10. But they don't. It's hilarious how lopsided this team is. It's actually comical.
Yeah. Okay, well, 14th place, I've got one of their neighbors. It is, well, I think it's their only neighbor that's in the World Cup anyways. It's Colombia. It's a good team. A team that has beaten Mexico 4-0 recently, got a respectable draw against Canada that honestly could well have been a 1-0 win.
I think for their standards, a draw is not good.
Yeah, that's fair. But then also a 3-0 win against Australia. And 2-1 loss to Croatia, not too bad. But if you know about Colombia's players, I think you know what the issue is here. It's James Rodriguez, that's what it is. Why are we starting him against Croatia and France?
To be fair, that man cooked the Copa America.
I know, but he's been getting no playing time at club level. But I get it.
Okay, now does Ochoa, bro.
No.
What's your
I
point?
get it because if Rodriguez isn't at his best, Colombia just aren't at theirs. I think they recognize that. Yeah, Luis Diaz
Okay,
can get
I
you goals.
agree.
You
Look, I
could
agree.
have
I just think
someone
that
like
I like every tournament he does play at his best though.
No, I know that's true, but it's not looking great, really. He didn't look good in those games against Croatia and France, where I want to say he played like 30, 40 minutes each, and he didn't do much of anything. But how do you fill that void? You could have someone like Carrascal or Quintero come in. They're not going to fill that void, and unfortunately, if he's not up to par, it's not going to be the same Colombia team that was making the Copa final 2 years ago. It's just not.
I mean, I agree with you that if James Rodriguez plays well, Colombia are a dark horse and they could go what? They could make a semifinal. But if he's not, then they're kind of cooked. I'm just assuming that he is going to play well. Like he has not had a bad tournament since like going back to 2014 when he went to Real Madrid and everybody thought he was the next big thing. Obviously, he never made it at club level, but he's been very consistent at Colombia during the actual tournaments. So I'm gonna have him. I'm gonna have Colombia a little bit higher than you. My 14th place team is gonna be Switzerland. I think they're another. Like honestly, I'll say this: everybody from 13th and higher has upset potential. Switzerland is the final team on my list that I don't think have upset potential. Where they like, I mean, historically they always make the round of 16 and they get knocked out by like some particularly strong squad, right? So that's what I'm kind of worried about here. Very strong front three, Ruben Vargas, Breel Bo, Dan Doy, the Nottingham man. But they don't have a great back line. I mean, Akanji's aging, Kobel's aging. Like they're still very solid. They're still very serviceable. Not at their primes though. And Granit Xhaka is gonna have to do a fucking number for Switzerland to do well. Like they're playing Canada, Bosnia, and Qatar. Like they're gonna be fine. They're probably gonna get 9 points in the group stages. But after that, that's where I'm a little bit worried. I don't know what the peak is for the Switzerland side is, but I think the second they play an elite side, they're gonna get overrun in the midfield. They're gonna concede goals. And as long as the other team's backline is good enough, like they're not gonna be able to pace these anymore, and that's kind of the end of the line for Switzerland. So they're definitely a solid team. Like I think they're probably gonna make a round 16 and then get knocked out again, as they always do. But because of that, I can't really place them much higher.
Yeah, and I do have Switzerland 13th. I think for a lot of people it would be quite the sleeper team because there's not too many big names on this team. I guess you've got Shaka, Okafor, who's been great lately, Sommer, Akanji, you could say Dan Doy as well. Not too many stars though. What they do have is a lot of cohesiveness. Shaka, of course, is a big part of that, indispensable part of their build-up play. Great pace and attack from Embolo. I didn't mention him. I think a lot of people might not know Embolo that well. And Doy, who's now stepping up. Vargas as well. The defense is a concern, and Akanji's been known to be inconsistent at times, but it's still an all-right backline paired with a pretty strong attack and an amazing midfield anchor, right? In Shaka. It's a good team, but I do agree with you that if they get just a stronger team, really, any of these teams that I have ahead of them, they probably will get knocked out. And that's
It's just like who is the X factor, right? Because we're basically just describing a very solid, good, consistent,
yeah.
balanced team. But
But how far they get, I think
you need
you need a decent opponent. Yeah.
And even like Ecuador, who's below them, like they have the defense is the trump card, right? Like Switzerland don't really have a trump card like that. So
they're all rounders. They're generally good, but you can find a team that could honestly be lower on our ranking, but could like completely box Switzerland in and they don't get by.
Dude, I think they just lose to Ecuador.
Yeah, I agree. Or it could just be a better team, generally. Like a team that's also all around good, but they're just better. And that'll get Switzerland knocked out as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, my 13th place team, anyways, is going to be the Japanese. They are far and above the best in Asia. I mean, they're like 15 places ahead of anybody else that we've mentioned. Here's the thing: I think they have a lot more upset potential than Switzerland do. Like I said, 13th and higher for me. Anyone there can either win or be a dark horse, but they've never actually done it. They always get knocked out in the round of 16, and they so consistently get knocked out in the round of 16 that they made a manga series about it. And that manga series became a 2-season anime show, Blue Lock. I haven't watched it, but I heard that it's quite good.
The first season, anyways. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Frame
I see. Okay.
frame lock is what the second one is called.
Crazy. Isn't the plot of Blue Lock that they're trying to find like a striker?
Yeah, the best egoist basically, who can just
Exactly.
score
Well,
goals on
here's the
every
problem
single
with Japan.
time.
They don't have a good striker. They don't have a good egoist.
Yeah, it's based in fact,
That's
bro.
it's
Seriously.
listen. There's a reason the manga is so popular. Actually, that's not why the manga is popular at all. But it's accurate. It's true. It's very true. Um, Look, They're not strong physically. They don't have a true number nine. Zion Suzuki, who's their goalkeeper, he's not consistent. When he plays well, he's very good. But they're gonna need him to be that guy. Like if he has a howler in a knockout game, I mean that's how knockouts work. It's over. I don't know if I trust him to be consistent. But at the same time, the midfielders and the wingers on this side are absolutely diabolically good. Oh, not only are they good, Japan have crazy depth as well. So, for some context, Kao Mitoma, who is their second best winger, I would say, arguably their best winger if you're talking about national team performance, he's injured. He's not going to be playing. For most teams, like 75% of national teams will be crippled by that. But no, they have Takefusa Kubo, Ritsu Doan, Junya Ito, and Keito Nakamura. Right? You also have they have Minamino, who's out in the midfield.
Yeah.
That would normally be a really big disaster as well. They have Daichi Kamada, Sano,
Endo.
and Wataru Endo. Look,
Ritsu
man.
Doan, even you could say. It's like it's good.
Yeah, because he could play there as well,
Yeah.
true. Yeah, so the midfield's really good. The wingers are really good. I guess you could make the argument that not having a great striker is fine because their wingers are just they have so much output, like offensively scoring wise. But it does make them a little bit easier to counter if you're very strong. But certainly, like a team with weak fullbacks, Japan could eviscerate them, and they have a midfield to compete with anyone. Physicality is a bit of a problem, but I think generally speaking, I do trust their midfield. Um, I guess. Oh, one other thing I should mention: their high press is very deadly. Like if you're not good on the ball, like if you're a Belgium, if you're a USA, you play Japan, you're cooked. Um, Most elite teams are good at that, are good at handling that though, so it's not going to be too much of an advantage. But certainly for the group stages and depending on who they play in the knockouts, early on at least, it could be a big factor.
Yeah, though to be fair, if the high press doesn't work out, the back line is not too great. I mean, I can think of like Tomiyasu, who it's a shame that things didn't work out for him at Arsenal, but yeah. There's like who else? Ko Itakura, Ayumu Seiko. I don't know. It's all right, I
It's not
guess.
terrible. It's fine.
And then their keeper situation, like you said. Here's the thing: if they need to take out Zion Suzuki for whatever reason, if he has a stinker, their other two options, I'm pretty sure, are J League keepers from their domestic league. Now, I tout the J League quite a lot, honestly, as a pretty strong league. I even have, perhaps you've seen people who've watched for a while have seen, I have a pink Cerezo Osaka jersey that I'll sometimes wear. That's one of the kits I have. The one position where the J League is terrible is the net. The goalkeepers are genuinely trash in the J League. So
you know more about the J League. I don't know anything about the J League.
but you have to. But my point is, you have to keep Zion Suzuki. You don't have a choice in this case. Yeah.
And I saw a short where James Lawrence Alcott, I said his name wrong. James Lawrence Alcott. He basically did like young wonder kids to watch out for, and his goalkeeper was Zion Suzuki. And he's a cursed man, so that might mean that Zion Suzuki is fucked now. So we'll see what happens. But James might have just destroyed him. So hopefully for Japanese fans that their goalkeeper situation can be resolved.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantees.
I mean, you had Japan 13th. I do have them 12th. So basically everything we've been discussing. I guess there is also the mentality concern because they've been eliminated in the round of 16 so many times. And if you think about that too much as a player, it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
And mentality becomes...
They do need an egoist.
Yeah.
Like, Blue Lock is very much correct.
Right. Mentality becomes a bit more of a concern for me because of Mitoma's late injury. Not that he can't be replaced on the pitch. You have, like, Nakamura for that, for example. Japan's got that depth. But I think he's always been quite the, like, individual game changer. Definitely would give the team confidence that they can break a defense down quickly anytime in the game. They stay in the game because of that. They don't necessarily have that anymore. And lastly, I know we've called out a lot with this team, But their manager, Moriyasu, is such a wild card with his tactics and his substitutions. There is some significant uncertainty for me with this team. And you could absolutely argue for them in the top 10, but I'm going to leave them a bit outside of it. I'll have them in 12.
I feel like everyone either loves or hates Moriyasu. I've never heard a neutral opinion about it before.
Very polarizing guy.
Very polarizing guy. He's like a politician, an American politician. You love him or you hate him. Anyways, we are moving my 12th place team. This might be a little bit low, but I don't really rate them at all. I'm going to put Germany at number 12.
Okay.
Die Mannschaft has fallen off from its peak. And after winning the World Cup in 2014, they've never made the knockout stages since. They are going to make the knockout stages this time because Kyrgyzstan's in their group. But you never know. They could easily choke in one of the knockout stages. So they did play very well at Euro 2024. But Florian Wirtz still remembered how to kick the ball back then. And CoDaKrew had not yet retired. There are still other players that are very strong in the midfield. You have Joshua Kimmich, you have Leon Goretzka, you have Pavlovic, and you have Musiala. But they don't have a good offense. You know, Serge Gnabry being injured is going to be a big problem. Leonard Carl has the quality to play there, but it's always very tough. I don't know, it's like 18 or 19. Like, it's very tough to have a 19-year-old and give them the responsibility of carrying a national team, especially a national team that's decorated as the Germans. The offense is, the striker is like a horrific situation. Dennis Undav, if he is not available, if this injury persists, they will have to either start Kai Havertz or Voltemade. Think about that. Kai Havertz or Voltemade in the Big 26. And I understand Kai Havertz scored in the Champions League final and, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you cannot rely on that guy. Like, he's not a reliable striker whatsoever. And they don't really have good fullbacks either. Like, you could play Kimmich as a right back, but then that weakens your midfield. Besides that, like, they don't really have a good left back. They have Valdemar Anton, who would be their starting right back otherwise. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation there. And then their starting keeper is Manuel Neuer, who's like not. When he's playing well, he's still very good, but he's not as consistent. He's more error-prone than he definitely was in the past. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling too high on the Germans right now.
Yeah, I have them in 11th. And I think here's the thing for me. I'm going to say right now that Morocco's my 10th. I just want to say this because I have them very close together and they have friendlies upcoming. Germany versus the US and Morocco versus, I want to say, Norway. This could very much flip for me. But the other thing is Germany have the potential to go a lot higher here, to do a lot better than 11th place. They're definitely further from their ceiling than Morocco. But that's the thing. Their performances have shown they're just not anywhere near their best, or at least like what we've seen of them recently. They got run ragged by Italy in the Nations League quarterfinals, squandered a 3-goal lead, went through on aggregate, then lost to Portugal in the semifinal, then to France without scoring a goal. In fact, they were very wasteful in that game. And since then, a bit like Morocco, we haven't seen Germany play too many big teams, save for Switzerland, who also ran them ragged, by the way, and left Germany with like a narrow 4-3 win. Shit, man. There's so much space here for teams to counterattack. If you just do that, run down the wings like Switzerland did, you can give Germany just as much trouble. But of course, Germany does also have a very productive attack, and so I'm not going to rate them too low down. They're
but
just
Gnabry's out though.
It's also fair. Yeah. Not top 10.
I hear it. Yeah. You have I haven't mentioned Colombia yet. So 11th is where I'm putting Colombia. I just assume, like, James Rodriguez always locks in for them during major tournaments. I'm assuming he will. And if he does, it's Luis Diaz, who is one of the best winners in the world. It's James Rodriguez, who, God knows how well he could play if he's on form. And silently, Luis Javier Suarez, that is, has silently become a very solid striker. So that front three, if everyone's firing well, is very solid. I think very quietly, like, underrated, a front three. Midfield is also quite solid. You got Danny Muniz, Richard Rios, Jefferson Lerma. You got Damson Sanchez, John Lacumi in the center back role. So the team overall is very solid. And the trump card they have is set pieces. They're very good at set pieces because you have James Rodriguez, who on his day is a very good set piece taker, and you have a very big, very physical starting 11 all around. So if you're not very good at defending set pieces, you could be in big trouble against a team like Colombia.
Yeah, fair. Now, Morocco, yeah, like I said, I have them 10th place to open up the top 10. You can argue they're either the best or second best team in Africa. I have them second best. And amazing defense with guys like Hakimi, Mazraoui, meaning any big game against any big team can be kept close. And they can at least try for a draw, if not maybe a narrow win. Bono is just insane in goal, so obviously that's going to help them along as well. A great midfield, and the center forwards aren't the best here, but you've also got these great technical wingers like Diaz, Talbi, Ezelzuli. I think it is a little hard to judge them lately because besides, save for Senegal in the AFCON final, they haven't been playing top tier teams. Not that they look bad in the games they have been playing. We just can't say for sure how they do against a team like Brazil, who's in their group. So top 10 for me, but just. And Germany, for me at least, not too far behind them. Again, with the friendlies in like a day or two, it could flip. But for now, I'll have Morocco 10.
Okay, I think that's more or less fair. I have them a little bit higher than you because, again, I think what you're saying about the uncertainty is very fair. Especially also because he's just got a new manager as well, and so there's always going to be like you can never truly judge a manager on a national team until they play in a major tournament. So I get it, but for me, I'm going to put Croatia at number 10 instead. I think the team is good, but it's aging, right? Like I think of the guys like Modric, Perisic, Stanisic, Guardiola. They are getting older. Like Luka Modric is 40 years old at this point, and there are some young guys that are good as well. But I'm not sure that they have the pungency that they did maybe 2018 or 2022. Still a very solid side. Still could go very far, but I don't. I think they're a little bit past their prime. Euro 2024 was a great example of this, by the way. But they're still very strong defensively. They're tough to break down. Vuskovic, Livakovic, great center back and goalkeeper respectively. Especially Livakovic. Dude, if you play a penalty shootout against Croatia, it's over because of Livakovic. You'd also have guys like, I would say Luka Modric as well as Josip Stanisic are quite good at ball delivery and the attack as well. Like Kramaric and Budimir, it's not elite, but it's solid enough. So if they get chances, they can still be a very big nuisance. And you know how Ecuador is like the team that their goal is to win 0-0 and win on penalties? Croatia's goal is to win 1-1 win on penalties. And again, like, you play on as soon as you go to penalties against these guys, like Croatia has won 4 penalty shots in the last 2 World Cups. It's almost like an aura thing at this point, where if you play Croatia in a penalty shootout, you've already mentally lost before the penalty shootout has started because they are just so good at it. So it's going to be very difficult to play a team like Croatia. I just can't put them higher because I still think, while in the past when these guys were a little younger, they could compete against anybody. I do think now that the truly elite teams shouldn't have too much trouble beating them. And again, at the last Euros, we saw that.
Yeah, I have Croatia 9th here. Livakovic in net for a shootout is insane, bro. And then the other thing is, let's say they and Ecuador are both trying to play for a 1-1. They can each get the 1 goal conceded, that's fine. But Croatia is just the better team at getting the 1 goal for themselves. And then they can go to the penalty shootout, where they're also just great at them. They're could be honestly the best team around for a World Cup penalty shootout. Certainly up there.
I honestly, if Argentina and Croatia play in a penalty shootout, I just want to know what would happen because I have no idea. That's a battle of aura farming. Who has more aura, Martinez or Livakovic? I have no idea.
At one point, I think I was underrating this team because I talked to you about this previously. Yeah. But there is genuinely a lot of talent here. Modric is still putting in pretty good passing work at Milan. Kovacic, Sucic, Perisic in that midfield as well.
Bro, two Sucices and they're both good.
Kramaric and Budimir up front. Budimir has been putting in fucking numbers in La Liga. And single-handedly saved Osasuna from getting relegated.
Would be so fucked about
it was him versus like Mariki on Mallorca.
Yeah, him and Mariki, bro. Budimir and Mariki are like generational players in La Liga.
Seriously.
Like actual like streets will never forget players.
Yeah. In defense, I was a bit concerned that like with Vardiol and Stanisic, they didn't seem quite good enough. But now you've got, I think, the missing piece, which is Luka Vuskovic, who's come in. And you've still got Livakovic, who was a hero 4 years ago, and he could be again. I'm not going to say ninth is underrated for Croatia because they have a history of overperforming their size, right, as a team and as a country, to the point where it's almost assumed they'll do it again. But don't get it twisted. They're in a great place as a team. And I think this World Cup will be another strong showing for them.
Yeah. And, I mean, if they make a quarterfinal, I don't know how people would feel about that online, but I think the quarter, like, I think I could see them make like a round of 16 or a quarterfinal. They could go further, but I don't know. I get the feeling that they're a little bit overhyped as well. They're not. They're still a very solid team. They can still upset almost anyone. But I think like while in the past, again, while a team like, let's say Brazil, I mean Brazil's gotten worse too, so that's not the best example. But let's say like 8 years ago, they could have been a team like Spain or France, and now I don't think they can anymore. So that's the only reason why I have them lower. And again, I haven't looked at the World Cup knockout bracket, so I don't really know who they'll have to play. But it's going to be interesting, let's just say. Okay, so my ninth place team is going to be Morocco. Trading places with you. I think you did a very good explanation for them. I'm a little bit worried about Agar. If he's injured, that might hurt the defense a little bit, but my understanding is he should be back, at least within the group stage. I don't know when exactly. Diop and Riyad are also not terrible defensively. They just haven't played together much, but I don't think that'll be too much of a problem. I guess the one thing I want to mention that you didn't talk about as much is the midfield. So, Amrabat, Al Anoui, I know Amrabat is a little bit older. They still have very good physicality and ball winning. Sabari, Al Kanous, Uwahi, great playmaking technique. As a Leicesterian, I know about Al Kanous. And it's not just that they're strong, but they have so many different midfield profiles that they can basically play a different tackle style against anybody, and it could still work essentially. Like they're very adaptive in that way, and that's an advantage they have that not even all elite teams have. Like there are some teams that are elite, but they can only play one way. I would not say that's I would say for Morocco they have a little bit more, let's say, more variety in the ways they can play. I wanted to make one other point, and it is that they did just sack Wally Regragui, and normally doing that right before a major tournament is a bad idea. I do want to remind folks that they signed Wally Regragui right before the World Cup in 2022. Everyone counted them out because of that and made the semifinal. So if there's one team I trust to somehow take a new manager bounce and go haywire on it in the World Cup, it is Morocco. So I'm not even too worried about the manager situation.
Yeah. Well, with that said, in 8th place, I have a team that could very much has a very high chance of playing Morocco in the knockouts because it is, I want to say it is the runners-up of Group C, likely Morocco, assuming Brazil wins it, versus the winner of Group F. And personally, I am thinking that is going to be the Netherlands. So that's who I've got here.
Okay.
Very high floor, just looking at the talent on the squad, but I think it's hard to say exactly how they're going to perform. It's just been hard to say exactly how they'll do how they would do in their recent games. Since that last World Cup, where they, of course, lost to eventual winners Argentina in the quarterfinals, they've then gotten 4th place in the Nations League, smoked us 4-0, I remember, before then also doing great in the Euros and getting to the semifinals.
Hey, that was Marsh's first game, by the way, so let's,
Fair. More recently, last 2 years, it's been a bit more questionable. Strong quarterfinal tie against Spain in the Nations League, I remember. But along the way, some questionable draws against like Bosnia, and I want to say it was Hungary as well. Then in World Cup qualifiers, didn't beat Poland in either game. I remember they almost drew like a high-scoring draw against Lithuania, who just are not a good team. They're like ranked 120th by FIFA or something like that. There are, like, by UEFA standards, the Baltic nations are just not good at football. And they almost drew to Lithuania there, which could have screwed them over a bit in qualifying. This year, they've beaten Norway, I remember, a good win. Drawn Ecuador, that's fine. And lost to Algeria. The results are kind of all over the place. I don't know, it's questionable. Team cohesiveness, questionable. The keeper role, bit of a concern for me because Roofs, Fleck, and Verbruggen are all decent, but there are teams with better options here, right? And I like the defense here, but the attack. Are you going to
Oh
rely on
God.
Memphis Depay or Brobby, who's inconsistent for Sunderland and has little experience with the national team? I'm only really confident in Somerville and Daniel Mullen. And there are teams higher up on
You're
my list
confident in
that
Mullen?
have.
I'm not confident in
He's
Mullen.
been scoring. That's all I can say, right?
Did you see the way he played against Algeria, bro?
I
This
know,
guy
I
missed
know.
like
It's
five
funny.
big chances.
But who scored? So where do the goals come from? Is the question.
Exactly.
Seriously.
I don't know.
There are teams higher up on my list that just have much better attacking lineups, plus potentially better keepers as well. There are definitely problems in this roster, and again, I think it's a high floor for them. Like I don't really expect the Netherlands to be. I do think they'll be first in the group. I definitely don't think they'll not make the group stage or even end up in like third. But they're besides that, they can get decently far into the knockouts, and then there's a lot of ways that things could go potentially.
I think I agree with that. I mean, look, I have them a little higher than you, and I agree. The offense is really bad, but the midfield is very solid as well. I'll talk about them more anyways. When I get to them, but I do think it's a very solid all-around side, and they have like the hanging power. It's kind of like again, if you don't concede any goals, you don't need to score. You can just go to a penalty shootout. And how good are the goalkeepers at penalties? I'm not so sure, but it is an experienced side. Like I do kind of trust them to do well. Obviously, they lost to Argentina on penalty shots, but that's excusable, I think.
I just realized I didn't even mention CoDaKrew when I was talking about people who could score.
Not worth mentioning.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
He sort of exists. All right, my eighth place team. I'm assuming you're gonna have them seventh. Is Senegal. So Senegal are. I was gonna say they're a reverse Netherlands, but that's not exactly true. They have very good wingers. So Ismail Assar, Ilman Njai, Sadio Mane, Ibrahim Mbaye, and Saïd Dial. Like honestly, they have a more winger depth than Japan, which is kind of crazy. The one issue though, offensively, just like Japan by the way, is their starting striker is Nicholas fucking Jackson. Nicholas Jackson. What are we doing, man? Like, I'm sorry, CoDaKrew is really bad. I mean, he wouldn't be the striker. I would still rather have Memphis Depay than Nicholas Jackson, with all due respect. But then again, the rest of the team is really good. Lamine Kamara, Habib Diarra, Idrissa Gueye. You've got Papa Gueye. Very solid midfield. Defense is very solid as well. The one rated there is will Koulibaly start? But even without him, I mean, Mamadou Sarr, Nketiah, they're still very solid center backs. And I guess that's one concern. Then I like the Netherlands too. My one other concern is the goalkeeper position because Edouard Mendy is still very good, but he is past his prime, and I'm not sure how he will perform under the strain of a large tournament. So I think Senegal and the Netherlands are very interchangeable for me. I'm just going to put Netherlands a little bit higher because they have more pedigree. Like Senegal has never made it past a round 16 before, which is crazy that a team that has never made it past round 16 were both placing like 8th or 7th, but that is still a fact that's going to go against them. They've never been to a quarterfinal before, even though I do think they could very much make it this time.
Yeah, yeah. But it is honestly with Senegal, who I do have seventh, quite the well-rounded team we've got here. Ismail Assar, Mane, and Jai on the wings. Pap Matar Sar in midfield. Pap Gay, Idrissa Gay, Habib Diarra, Mamadou Sar, and Juf at the back. Edouard Mendy's hardly bad in goal either. Maybe one of those Dutch keepers could fare better than him, but I don't think he's a bad pick here. This team has got talent everywhere, and I don't see any one big strength, but I don't see a big weakness either, except
I mean, I would say
center
the
forward.
strength.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because they do have depth, like you said.
Jackson, even like they're also they're just
probably,
objectively good though.
I agree.
Like it's not just depth; they're really good.
Jackson up front is probably the weakness, but
yeah.
they can get by that. To be honest, they powered through AFCON. Deserved the title. Should have kept it, in my opinion. I imagine yours as well.
Do you love the title? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, and like many African teams, there are concerns that Senegal haven't played enough teams outside of CAF. For me, anyways. But when they have, they've beaten England, lost to Brazil, but also beat them as well. and had a good showing, I think, against the US. A lot of resilience, especially from Mane. I'm very happy to see Mane play well. And yeah, besides center forward, perhaps, there are very few of any complaints from me with this team.
I think it's also worth mentioning not having Koulibaly is a big loss, and that's a big factor in the loss against the US, and they should get him back pretty soon. So again, it's not like it's not the worst loss in context. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Anyways,
You're seventh, yeah.
yeah, myself, Netherlands, yeah. The one point I wanted to add to yours is I think their midfield is also very solid. Um, Tiani Reinders has not had a good club season, but he's still quite good. Gravenberch, De Jong, Koop Miners, honestly, all of them have had mid to bad club seasons, but we know how good they can be for the national team. So if the problem is just scoring, I think the Dutch are a real dark horse for me. I think if Xavi Simons were actually still playing, they could win the World Cup. But because of that, because there's no Xavi Simons, I don't think they can do it. But no, I still think it's a very solid side overall. It's just like Senegal. They just could have a better goalkeeper, could have a better striker. Not really much else to complain about for the Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they do well, because if they don't, it's a bad reflection on Liverpool, just with how many Dutch players we have.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sixth place.
Wait, so I just want to say this is a point. From this point forward, these top 6 teams are the 6 teams that we think can win the World Cup, right? Because that's what I'm looking at.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm not taking Senegal or the Netherlands. Maybe if, like you said, the Netherlands had Xavi Simons. So I'm not taking them though to win the World Cup. Anyone past this point, and that also means I think whoever I could have here would be a bit controversial as like the kind of the last team in to win the World Cup.
There's no England. Safe answer here. England.
Yes, I have England
in 6. Okay, I thought it's a little low, but okay.
Yes, I do. Okay, well, they've had a pretty good last 2 years or so. I mean, they were great at the Euros, good in the Nations League. They were in League B, but I can't complain about them winning every one of their games, right? World Cup qualifiers, their group was Serbia, Latvia, Albania, and Andorra. So obviously they won all those games, but don't take that as basis for how they're going to perform here, right? I don't think they've been great as of late. Not since qualifiers ended. A draw against Uruguay at Wembley. Not a bad one, since they did force a lot of saves out of Muslera. It didn't especially look like they'd win, though. And then a drab 1-0 loss to Japan with lots of possession, but no incision. Forget not looking like they'd win. They didn't look like they'd score. Those 2 games aren't everything, obviously, which is why I'm not saying, oh, England aren't going to win the World Cup because they fucked up in their 2 most recent friendlies. It doesn't negate making the Euro final 2 years ago, right? But if I'm going to differentiate between these teams somewhere, I think recent form is a good place to do it. And so England, I still give them a good chance of winning it all, but they're out of my top 5.
My 6th place team, I'm surprised I don't have them in 6. It's going to be Brazil. I mean, this is the worst Brazil we've seen in a generation. They could still win, for sure, but it is questionable. I would say that Carlo Ancelotti has stabilized the ship to some extent. They're still getting tough losses everywhere. They did beat Croatia, they did beat Senegal and South Korea, but I mean, they also lost to Japan, like England, right? So there are some question marks here. Squad-wise, like, it's weird because Brazil, this is the worst Brazil in a generation. But if you look at their squad, it's very good. It's just for whatever reason, nothing is clicking. The wingers are elite. Rafinha, Vini Jr., Ryan, Martinelli, Luis Enrique, and their striker, I'm assuming it's going to be Igor Thiago, although it's not clear. It might be Cunha. I think it'll be Thiago, though. That is maybe a cause for concern just because of the lack of experience. But they are quite solid as well. I guess the only place where you could actually say, like, on paper is a problem is just the fullbacks. Like, that, it's kind of rough there, and that is part of why I have them in 6. Like, basically all the elite teams have good wingers, so that's a big problem. And besides that, I mean, there's just a lot of question marks about the side. They get good wins, they get losses. It's very difficult to judge Don Carlos' tenure. And furthermore, like, they won the World Cup in 2002. Since then, they've not beaten a European side in the knockouts. Not once. 2018 lost to Belgium, 2022 Croatia, 7-1 Germany. I don't have the ball knowledge to remember before then, but you get the point. I think they might have. Actually, never mind. Did they lose to Germany in 2010 as well? Maybe, I don't remember. Whatever, it's not important. Anyways, I feel like there's just a lot of specters that are haunting the side. They know that the floor is really bad. And in Brazil, if you play poorly in a World Cup, it's over. Like, your reputation is finished. And there's the ghost of never having been an elite European side. I'm assuming they probably will play like the European side at some point in the knockouts. That's not like tier 1 and they'll probably beat them. But still, once they go to like the quarters, the semis, and they have to go against the elite opposition, that's where I'm worried.
Okay, yeah, and I do have Brazil 5th. I mean, it is of course a team that is like oozing with talent. Brazil always is. But yeah, they've definitely looked questionable at points this campaign. I mean, there was a time where in CONMEBOL qualifying they looked absolutely terrible, and if they kept that same form, they might have not made the tourney at all.
Yeah.
But clearly they are far improved from that point. And there have still been some questionable losses. I know there was like 4-1 to Argentina, right? But they've had some, I think, very good wins too. 5-0 against South Korea, 2-0 against Senegal, 3-1 against Croatia not too long ago. The March window against France and Croatia, worth saying, I think, that they were missing some key guys, namely Guimaraes and Gabriel. And they looked all right against France without them, beat Croatia without them, and with them, they just thrashed Panama 6-2. And of course, we both had Panama pretty low, but that is still another World Cup squad. I think yeah, the players have definitely stepped up.
Panama rotated everybody after the first 45, and their backups are a lot worse than the starting 11.
Okay, fair. But I'm pretty happy with what they've been doing recently. Obviously it's like we talked about this before with Uruguay, right? Where I was talking about Bielsa steadying the ship, and you're like, oh, steadied it from a 5-1 loss, which okay, fair,
Yeah.
maybe steadied the
You
ship.
could make the same thing about Brazil, right?
Again, it's maybe the same thing here because they were just that shit before. But
Yeah.
they're not the usual Brazil that we see, but they're hardly a bad team either. So I'll still say them and everyone else in this top 6 has a decent shot at winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My 5th place team is actually not going to be England either. My 5th place team is Portugal.
Okay.
Look, Portugal have the best midfield in the world right now. I mean, Neves and Vitinha are the 2 best midfielders in the world, in my opinion. Certainly 2 of the top 3, and then Bruno Fernandes just broke the assist record. So here's the dilemma, right? Anyone who is a Ronaldo fan, anyone who thinks Ronaldo is the GOAT, I have to make a proposition to you, and I don't know how you can disagree with me here. If Ronaldo doesn't win the World Cup this year, he's not the GOAT. Because Portugal have the best midfield by far. By far. They have good fullbacks as well. They have decent center backs. Wingers are not bad either. Ronaldo's going to get a lot of chances, man. If he can't finish, it's all on him. Now, the thing is, he is kind of washed, and that's why I only have him 5th. But I don't think Ronaldo's the GOAT, so there you go. Okay, so also about the squad, though, Mendes and Mateus Nunes, obviously, again, very strong wingbacks. Leao, Conceição. Not the best seasons for their clubs, but we know how good they can be for Portugal. I mean, we saw it in the last Nations League. And again, like, besides Ronaldo, Roberto Martinez is not a good manager, in my opinion. And this team is weak to set pieces. Like, they don't really have tall defenders. They don't have the most physical defenders. Vitinha is 5'8" and Neves is 5'9", so it's not like the midfield is going to do much helping them either. And I do kind of think that if you just crowd them in the box enough, they could just kind of fall apart to a set piece. But other than that, man, it's Martinez or Ronaldo. Like, if Portugal flop and get knocked out early, Ronaldo's a fraud. Like, they have to do... I'm sorry, if you're a Ronaldo fan, what is the excuse if Portugal don't win the World Cup this year? I just want to know. Sorry, not a Ronaldo fan. I mean, everyone's a Ronaldo fan. But if Ronaldo's the GOAT, what is the excuse if Portugal don't win the World Cup this year?
Nothing, honestly. Yeah, he's gonna get good service. Whoever they choose to prioritize ultimately, and it probably will be Ronaldo to start, but whoever they choose to prioritize will be getting good service. It's just up to them to score.
Dude, the thing is, doesn't have the balls to bench him. That's the thing.
If Ronaldo does get benched, there are definitely players here to replace them. Not that everyone here has been great. I mean, but you could you could definitely find other people to put in this forward line. However, I agree with you. Do they have the balls to take off Ronaldo? Probably
No,
not,
they
and it
don't.
probably will hurt them a bit. Yeah,
And Gonzalo
yeah,
Ramos is not
it
even an
could be
elite
trouble.
striker either. He's a very good striker. And I
Right,
would say
right.
so is Ronaldo still, to be
He
quite
scored a
honest.
few for PSG. Yeah. I don't know, like Trincao, maybe. No, Trincau's a
As a
yeah,
striker?
yeah.
Nah.
No. He's definitely better on the wing. Uh, questionable. Um, I don't know who
I'm
you
sorry.
put there.
To
I'd
me,
have to
it's
look
kind of
into it.
crazy
There
you
are
put
people.
England
There are
below Portugal
definitely
and Brazil.
options. There are definitely options, but it is questionable who you would take off of the wing and like put in as a central forward. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have Portugal fourth. I think for me, and perhaps for you as well, England, Brazil, and Portugal are one group, and the other three are going to be another
Oh,
group
yeah, for
in
sure.
terms
No,
of
100%.
odds. So I want to say these aren't too far apart. For me, Portugal are also very similar to England in terms of how they've been doing lately. Didn't get as far in the Euro. They did win the Nations League, and their World Cup group, the qualifying group, was tougher than England, but they also did slightly worse. So again, largely equal in my mind. Again, that's just going to take me to recent form as like my main differentiating factor, which Portugal has just been a bit better than England as of late. I will say though, these are both talented teams, but England more so than Portugal. Thus, I'd consider England in their recent games to be underperforming more than Portugal, and they can always step things up. Again, all close together, but I think all the fans of these teams should be happy to know that like you've got a pretty good shot at winning it all.
Yeah. I would say I separated between World Cup contenders and World Cup favorites, is the way I see it. And England, I think they still do have a better all around squad than Portugal, assuming that Ronaldo is not at his best anymore, which I just think he's not. England, luck. Squad is unbelievable, right? Center backs, you got Mark Gahey, who was really solid. This man has stepped up over the last year. As Riconza as a center back, you have O'Reilly, Livermental as fullbacks. The midfield, honestly, I wouldn't say they're the second best midfield, but maybe the third best midfield. Anderson, Rice, and Bellingham is a very solid midfield. And you also have guys like Morgan Rogers. I don't remember if Adam Morton was called up to the squad or not. I think he was. Um, I mean, those guys can also they can do a number as well. So very solid midfield. Harry Kane is the best striker in the world right now, at least in my opinion. The wingers are like the only relative weakness, but it's a very good England side. And even regarding like recent form, yes, it's not been great, but Thomas Tuchel is the tournament manager. I'm gonna have faith in that for now. And Jordan Pickford is a tournament keeper, right? I mean, this guy always steps up for England. If we were basing it on club football, he shouldn't even be here. But his like form for England is undeniable. So I don't really see the flaw here on the English national team. I would say maybe like I would say honestly, their defense is better than it was in like previous editions. Their midfield is better, and the attack has maybe gotten a little bit worse, but not even significantly. The biggest disadvantage for this England side, I would even say, is just they haven't won in so long. Like it's just the curse, the World Cup curse. But I think this team, on paper at least, absolutely, you could make an argument England have the most quality in the world on paper, but they just never won. They've never won the World Cup. They definitely could this season, but I'm not going to consider them to be a title favorite. World Cup favorite. Sorry, not title.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well then we do go on to those favorites now. And I honestly think that just as England, Portugal, Brazil are very close together in odds in my mind, so too are these three teams. But even still, the one you picked third could be pretty controversial. I have Argentina down here.
Okay. I don't, honestly, you can place in them any order. I don't really care.
Yeah,
I think it's
I
all
do think
reasonable.
so, but there will be people who will definitely be toward a specific team, and it's like anything else is blasphemy, right? But
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not
I
going to
know.
say too much about these three teams. We know they're amazing. Great talent, great depth. And I'm sure if you ask any bookie, these guys, maybe plus England, depending on who you ask, are well ahead of anyone else for odds to win the whole thing. My concern right now for Argentina is fitness. There were lots of players in the intended 26-man roster who were working through injuries last month. Marcos Acuna was not able to join. because of a muscle strain. I think it's now Valentin Barco replacing him. I know Barco's not actually a left back, but it's him and like Taliafico who are, I guess, supposed to hold up that
I'm
position.
assuming Tyler Fingers from the start, right?
Probably, yeah. Romero had an injury with Spurs, just as every Spurs player has had this season. Lisandro Martinez, Nico Paz, Lionel Messi was a concern for a little bit. Of course, this could all clear up before the tourney, and Argentina can go and win it again. Hell, they can still go and win it now, even if they do need to make subs from time to time.
Thankfully, the group's
And
not too
maybe,
crazy. I mean,
yeah,
it's not bad, but like they're
they can
just
get
better than
by
everyone.
with a
Yeah.
largely second string team. And if they need to wait on some of these guys until like, I don't know, round of 16 quarterfinals for them to start coming in, they can do it, absolutely. But if I've got to split up these teams somehow, this is what I'll use. Also, I know it was a bit of an experimental lineup, but 2-1 against Mauritania is not what you expect from this side. So yeah.
Yeah.
Third place.
Yeah.
Hardly bad odds, but third place.
I have a different reasoning. I think what you said is very valid. I'm going to give France the third spot, and that's because
Okay.
I don't like their system. They play a 4-2-4, and their midfield too is probably going to be they're going to be reliant on an aging N'Golo Kante, Chouameni, and like Adrian Rabiot. So I don't know if that midfield can hold up against the elite midfields like the Portugals, the Argentinas, the Spains, the Englands, right? The offense is unbelievable, right? Mbappe, Dembele, Doué, Barcola. But honestly, in recent matches, especially in like actual tournaments like the Nations League, I haven't seen them all play very cohesively together, and they're gonna have to figure that out soon. So essentially what Deschamps has tried to do is play all of them at once, or at least try to put as much quality as you can into the lineup at once. And again, that means that the midfield is very questionable. The defense, I also think, look, William Saliba, I have full trust in. But the other center back, Konate, bro. I mean, everyone I think by now has seen the Konate stuff against Cote d'Ivoire. You do that once in a World Cup, it's over. You do that in a knockout match, it's done. One goal can be the difference between life and death. You cannot be making mistakes like that. You cannot be doing Steven Gerrard impressions in a World Cup.
Yeah, if you're a Liverpool player, this is just what happens to you, I guess.
Yeah, this is Liverpool heritage,
this
bro.
This is our curse, yes. Okay. Second place, I have Spain, which yes does mean I'm wearing their kit and I don't have them winning. I don't have a France kit, else I might have just worn that. But Spain were the other team that would have played Argentina in La Finalissima.
Well, you are wearing a Spain kit from when they did win. I do see the South Africa.
That's fair. It is David Villa. It is David Villa on the back. Because of security concerns, they ended up scheduling Serbia and Egypt, and they were good against Serbia. A bit toothless against Egypt, especially in the first half. Ended up with a 0-0 draw, which I'm pretty sure actually took them below France in the FIFA rankings. Though with France's loss to Cote d'Ivoire, Spain are back in second now. It's not. Yeah. Again, I have to say this with a lot of teams. Don't let the recent form discredit like the players, the roster they have available, or like other games, other tourneys where they've done well. Spain, all the work they've put in over the last 2 years, yeah, you can't let these two games discredit them. But it is gonna put them just a bit back here for me.
Yeah,
and I will admit as well. I should say one thing: France's form recently also has not been perfect, right? So everyone here is maybe a tad off their game, but still, they're still the three favorites at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say, like, for me, I'm gonna put Argentina second and Spain first. Honestly, should I just say should I just say reasoning for both?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we could just put the top three as like its own segment, I think, because whatever. It's once you say who's third and second, do the logic, right? Anyways, Argentina, I'm gonna put second because the squad is aging. I don't think it's as talented as Spain's. Basically, very similar to what you said. And I want to add, like, Lionel Messi is 38. Tagliafico is old. Otamendi is old. There are some young players still, like Nico Paz, very solid. Thiago Almada and Simeone can give like wing depth, which also gives Argentina the advantage of playing multiple ways in a way that I think France can't, but that Spain can. So I think there's something there. I would also say, like, Emi Martinez again, Argentina in a penalty shootout, except maybe Croatia, in which case again I have no idea what the fuck happens. I would have Argentina beating anybody else in the penalty shootout because Emi Martinez exists, and this team has crazy cojones. And yeah, I mean, this side has so much creativity. They have so much depth that they have to be a contender. If you place them first, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But for me, Spain's just about edges them out.
Yeah, fair. Okay, well, I do have France first, and it is worth addressing that loss from yesterday against Cote d'Ivoire. They're a good team, but France shouldn't be losing to them at home. But it is worth saying that wasn't a full strength French team. Certainly not all the way through. There was no Saliba in the back line this whole game, no Dembele or Doué, and a lot of substitutions at the half. Lacroix for Upamecano, Mateta for Mbappe, Akliouche for Elise. Hardly bad players, but not. This is not first team we're
I
looking
think
at.
it's more of a
lot of
testament
this
to
game.
Cote d'Ivoire than France. Because, again, like you said, France's second team is very solid. So the fact Cote d'Ivoire still beat
Yeah,
them is still, like, that's a very good accomplishment from Cote d'Ivoire. But,
exactly.
yeah.
And it's worth saying, again, Cote d'Ivoire missing a few key guys as well, but it was closer to full strength for them. Enough about that game, though. I think if you look at those March games, man, the depth is fucking insane here. Look at the starting 11 against Colombia. You had like Lacroix, Akliouche, Zaire Emery, Doué, Thuram. Those are players on what is practically a second roster for France. And I haven't heard of any notable injuries here, so I don't think there are any depth concerns. If I had to think of one position where you'd maybe have some issues, and this is not to say that he's a bad player or anything, it's maybe keeper with Mike Maignan. But that's really the only concern against these two other teams in Spain and Argentina. It's just great depth all around. But again, you can switch these teams up for sure. I don't think any combination of these three teams is unreasonable, as long as it is these three as your top three. Yeah.
Yeah. I think France definitely have the most depth. They have the best second team in the entire world. For me, Spain is first. I mean, I'll lead with this. You know how you said Mike Maignan is a weakness? Spain, they don't have the best keeper in the world, but they have the best keeper roster in the world. Unai Simon, Joan Garcia, and David Raya as your three goalkeepers that's broken, bro. Like, how can one country have that, bro? That's not fair. This is not fair. The defense is really solid. Kubarsi, Garcia, Cucurella, Lorente, even. The one issue is Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal might miss some game time. But then again, Spain are so good and their group is so terrible that they'll be fine. I mean, there's the second best team in the group is Uruguay, so I'm not too worried about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with the goalkeepers, it is true that a keeper can last a long way through a tourney. Chances are, it doesn't need to be subbed much, if at all.
Right. But the thing is,
it's
in the worst case scenario, even then Spain are fine.
yeah, and it's less for me like, oh, they have the best keeper around, and more like they're hogging all the good keepers to themselves.
True.
Their opponents
True.
don't get them. It's just Spain that has
Yeah,
them.
France is rocking in with like Mike Maignan, bro. It's I mean, Mike Magnan's solid, but you know.
Yeah, honestly, he is. These teams generally are just solid everywhere on these teams. I don't think there's any significant weakness for Argentina or Spain or France anywhere on the pitch. Yeah. And they've all got good depth. I say it for France especially, but they all do. And they can, like, even if it's an extra round, you've got a round of 32 this World Cup, I doubt it's going to be a problem for any of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So expect good stuff from these guys.
Honestly, I feel like which team do you think is the favorite of the three? Is this like a personality test?
Honestly, yeah.
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 Like, what style of football do you like?
Yeah. It's just I think the top three are set, kind of, and outside that, the top six are set. But if you want to move teams around a bit, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I
have seen some like Netherlands shots. I've seen some people say the Netherlands will win the World Cup, and I haven't seen anyone say Senegal will win the World Cup yet, which is interesting because I think those two teams are the next.
That might just be down to the pedigree, to be honest. Which is not an unreasonable.
So. Oh, also, there was an
consider.
economist who correctly predicted the World Cup like 3 years in a row.
I did see that,
and
he said the Netherlands would win.
Yeah, which
your
is crazy. I'm sorry,
buddy,
there's no logic to that. Your streak.
Your
honestly,
streak is gone.
If the Netherlands win the World Cup, that man needs to be arrested because he has like some level of wizardry that needs to be examined.
If the Netherlands win the World Cup, I will do everything in my power to ensure Arne Slot comes back to Liverpool, bro. We need that. We need that Dutch connection.
But no, then he's a sign Ronald Koeman at that point.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, Areola.
I mean, I'd love him to, because again, it's a great reflection on Liverpool. And like conversely, I'm hoping they don't somehow drop out of the group stage or something. That would not be good for us. Yeah.
Right. It could be the wake-up call that you guys need to fucking move on from Virgil van Dijk and Cody Gakpo.
Yep.
But
Yep.
we'll see.
And Grav. Okay, well, that's the tier list, the power ranking taken care of. It is a lot of interesting teams we've got here. Certainly ones that like I previously have not watched much of or looked too much into. Yeah, do you I mean we have an idea of who are the title favorites, title challengers as well. Any dark horses you have in mind?
I mean, I'll say this. It's not the list is not a good way to say who are the dark horses, but
True.
I would say Morocco are a real dark horse. I would say they might have a better chance of going further than Senegal or the Netherlands because they're more complete.
Yeah.
And I would say not a better backline, but I think they're just so complete that Morocco are very solid. And they just made the semifinal too.
All around good. Yeah.
Yeah, all around good. I would say Colombia are a dark horse in my opinion. I would consider Ecuador to be a dark horse. I would consider Norway to be a dark horse. And then there are other teams too, but they're just too good to be considered dark horses.
Yeah.
Once you're in the top 6, you're not a dark horse, you're just a contender.
Right.
But those would be my 4.
Yeah, no, those are all fair picks. Yeah. I question Germany a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Croatia,
Honestly,
I don't know if you consider them a dark horse again, because there are expectations around Croatia.
I just don't trust them. I don't think they have as much upset potential as some of these other teams, even though they're better than them.
Fair. Yeah, and in that sense, I'd be a little concerned about Switzerland as well. But yeah, no, they're good teams within like the top 20 that could definitely make it quite far and outshine whatever ranking we've given them.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I said it at the beginning. I have to make this clear again. Just because we ranked one team ahead of another does not mean that we're gonna have them beating that team in our actual cup predictions. So stay tuned. This is almost a 3-hour video, so we should probably cut it off.
Yeah. And if you appreciate long videos, don't worry. Our next video is predicting the entire World Cup, and we'll do our best to keep it short, but it will be probably just as long.
We're predicting over 100 matches. It's gonna be
Yes.
tough to make it too short.
Yeah, and I don't know how much we'll cover each match, but definitely just going through all those groups is going to take a long time. But if you like the ball knowledge slowly feeding into your mind as you play our videos in the background, or if you, I think I said this last video, if you want to use it while you sleep, yeah, great. No, it's perfect. It you will have more ball when you wake up.
These guys are gonna be dreaming about James Rodriguez, bro. Come on.
Okay. With that said, we will end off this video, and probably in 2 or 3 days' time, we will see you guys with another upload, a full tournament review from the CoDaKrew. With that said, have a good day, and we will see you all soon.
See ya.